Yo, what is going on, Papa Fam? Welcome to another build. Today we have the Newsletter AI SaaS. This is going to be an incredible build. It's going to be one of our biggest builds on this channel. Your boy keeps on leveling things up. And before we jump in, a quick shout out and thank you to our friends sponsoring over at MongoDB for making this entire segment possible. We appreciate you guys. We're going to go ahead and jump in. When that beat drops, let me know where you're watching from right now. If you're watching the replay of this video, make sure you go ahead and let me know where you're tuning in from. I absolutely love to see all around the world where you guys are tuning in. We are jumping into AI, MCP stuff, so much cool stuff on this channel. I can see LA in the house. I can see India, Bangladesh, UK, Canada. What is up, guys? Go ahead and get ready for the absolute incredible SaaS that we are about to get for absolutely free. Introducing FeedStack, the Newsletter AI. Bam. Check this out. Here we have our professional newsletter generator, which can generate things in honestly seconds, not even minutes. But here you can see it. We've got a beautiful, clean UI. Now, the ultimate goal of this build is to effectively take RSS feeds, process them with AI, and generate a beautiful newsletter. Why is this useful? And why is this something which even myself needed? Because we needed to go ahead and every single week, Jay would go ahead and send out newsletters to all of you amazing people. Now that takes a bit of work. So what did we want to do? We wanted to go ahead and make sure that we could go ahead and build a solution which is valuable to someone. So that's exactly what we've done here. So I thank you guys so much. I can see the comments flying through saying thank you. I love your energy. I appreciate you guys so much. Here we've got all of the different features of the app. You can see we followed a very clean, slick design. We've got how it works. We've got some transparent pricing. This is awesome, guys. You guys can see for yourself. This is coming from Clerk Billing. So yes, this video is also sponsored by Clerk, and I absolutely love them. More on them in just a second. But you guys can see here, I've customized these pre-built card components, the pricing card components, and you can see it's absolutely awesome. So let's jump into it and see what it's about. I'm going to go ahead and click on Get Started. Click on Continue. Let's log into, you know what? I've actually already got a pro membership here. So I want to show you. Let's do my team account. I believe I'm still a starter. Now, what I've done here is I've made sure that we've only got paid plans. Now, you can have a free plan. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and make sure we've only got paid plans. So we've got the starter plan at $7.99 billed annually, or we've got the pro plan at $15 a month billed annually. Or if you switch to monthly, you can go ahead and see how it reflects dynamically. So let's go ahead and select a price. I want to start off with the starter plan. Okay, so we're going to show you some feature gating, and we've got a bunch of useful things that we can use, and we get 7-day free trials on both. So let's go ahead and start our free trial right here. You can see we've got our development mode test card, and this is all from Clerk Billing. It's absolutely incredible. It's so clean and fast to set up. I'm going to go ahead and pay with the test card right now. So you can see I've successfully started my trial. I click on continue, and now I'm redirected, and we can go ahead and click through to our dashboard. Oh, okay, that's my fault. No, I pushed something right before the build, and that was my fault. Okay, it's okay. We're good. We're good. We're good. That's not going to happen. But we made it through. This is the thing with live streaming, okay? We made it through. I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, we're here. It's okay. Right, so we go through to the dashboard. That won't happen. Okay, we're good now. But you guys can see here, we've got dashboard, we've got the manage your RSS feeds and generate AI powered newsletter. So many of you who don't know what an RSS feed is, we can go ahead and dive straight into that right now. So I have a couple of favorite newsletters. I have things like React Status, which we absolutely love. This one right here. So this is a great newsletter, and they have an RSS feed. So if I click here, you can see these are all of the additions where they've gone ahead and, released a new newsletter and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the link from this. So I'm going to do Command Shift V, and I'm copying the URL, and I'm taking that, and they automatically will update that RSS feed. Marshall goes, your eyebrows are so hot. I appreciate you. I don't know where that come from, but thank you. We're going to go ahead and add the feed. And as you can see, what's happening right now, guys, that is scraping these articles into our system. Now, why is this so cool how I've done this? Because not only is this going to go ahead and scrape things from the system, however, it can do so much more. I'm going to go and do React status. Let's do node status as well. Node status, I think it's node status. Jay, if you go ahead and give me some of the ones that you've got as well in the back, and I can go ahead and use both. It's not that one. I think it was node status newsletter or Next.js weekly. Oh, node weekly, maybe node weekly newsletter. You can do any newsletter that you wish. right? So let's do node weekly, and let's do this one right here, RSS feed, bam. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add another feed, boom, do that, add the feed. And I really hope something didn't happen because I pushed something. I'm kind of nervous right now if I've screwed something up. But you can see it's already added that in and it picked up the articles, amazing. JavaScript weekly as well. Let me go ahead and grab that one. Thank you, Jay, for sending that through. So let's go ahead and do that. And then one more, Jay, for Next.js, please. Right, so let's go ahead and grab this one right here. I need the actual RSS feed link, Jay, right? So the .com.xml link, okay? So we're going to go ahead and add that one and that's scanning. Now, what have I done that's so cool behind the scenes here? Yeah? So I've actually gone ahead and made sure that we can do something really awesome, which is caching. So what this is really doing behind the scenes is it's actually going ahead and it's caching the RSS editions that we've done. So any articles, it's going to go ahead and cache them. And that is so powerful. It's crazy. Right, so next weekly, I believe it's that one, Next.js weekly. Yeah, this one. Now this one, I don't know if they actually had an RSS feed. So I can show you the one that I've done separately, yeah, because this is going to show us how to make an RSS feed. Okay, so in this case, we've got a couple here. But the main thing is before we do this, right, I want to show you, firstly, we've gated. So in this case, look, we can only add 3. If I tried to add another one, even if it was, for example, a wrong one, let's go ahead and just do that. Starter plan limited to 3 feeds, right? Upgrade to Pro. And then, of course, things like history, we can go ahead and upgrade to Pro, and we pop in the pricing cards. We pop in the settings. So settings is a very cool feature as well, which we feature gated. And we've got our account information here as well, right? Now, what I'm going to do is if you click on starter as well, you can see like you're a starter. It says upgrade to Pro. So I'm going to sign out of this account and I'm going to go into one of my Pro accounts. So let's go ahead and continue. And I'm going to go into my personal account and I'm a Pro here. Right. And what we've done there is we've already switched to this plan. The switch is very easy, by the way. You simply click it and it will go ahead and allow you to pay the difference. It automatically calculates everything. And now you can see, okay, we have some stuff here. We've got JavaScript Weekly, React Native, React Status, a bunch more. Next.js Medium, that's the one I was looking for. So I've got some CNN news and a few other things. Now, before I show you this in action, I want to show you, we've got history here now accessible. We've got settings, which basically I can put in settings such as PapaFam Weekly Digest. So I can always include, for example, what my newsletter is called, the target audience, the default tone, the brand identity, the industry brand voice, tags for SEO purposes, disclaimer text, custom footers, who the sender is, the email, and so forth. Okay, we can implement all of that. Now, here is where it gets incredible. So buckle up. We're going to go ahead and tick on only the coding sources. And I'm going to pick a date range. Okay, so what's happened in the last 30 days? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to say, I know that Next.js came out. So let's put an emphasis around Next.js. Emphasis on Next.js 16. And basically, we're going to click on generate newsletter. Now, what's happening here, guys, is it's analyzing 12 articles from the feed. So it found the feeds which need to be used from those newsletters. And look, it's generating a newsletter live. This is incredibly, you do not understand how incredible this is, guys. This is something that takes us time every single week to go ahead and build. And now it's doing it for us. So we've got the newsletter title options. We've got email subject lines. We've got newsletter body being live streamed in, by the way, right? So all of this is an amazing user experience. We're using Vercel AI under the hood. This is so awesome. We've even got the top 5 announcements. Look at that. All of these, if you've been up to date with any of the coding news lately, that's spot on. Everything is perfect. We even have some additional information over there. Done a weird one today with that, right? But you can even go ahead and copy some of these and you can even save them. Now, if I was to save it, it would save it to my history. Now, the one that I've saved is actually this one over here, which I saved earlier. And this was a really nice example earlier, actually. So we had some additional information. This is really what I wanted to look for. And then you can copy each of these segments. Now, why have I built it in this way, right? Well, firstly, you can download it. And in this case, if we were to download it, that will simply go into my Finder. So I can go ahead and open up my Finder right now. Let me go ahead and make sure that nothing sensitive pops up. And it's downloaded the newsletter right here. So I can show you guys what was downloaded. So it went ahead and downloaded a text file. And what I can do is pull it up right now. Sorry, I opened it in preview and I've closed it. My bad. So let's have a look so you guys can see for yourselves. It's downloaded the entire newsletter, guys. And you can see it's given us the title options, the subject line options, the body as well with markdown formatting. And we've even got the top 5 announcements and additional information. This is incredible. This is actually a genuinely very, very useful SaaS, right? So we are using this right now to help us speed things up internally, right? So that you can see it actually gave us spot on things. So this is spot on. And it even said, don't duplicate this newsletter. And the custom one, head over to the University of Code to go ahead and learn more about what we're doing. And that is absolutely spot on. That's exactly what I wanted. And you can see it shows us the custom context that I've added in. All of this was using GPT under the hood. And that is just so smooth. It's awesome. All right, we can go back to the history. Go ahead and destroy the like button firstly, if that's cool and you find that interesting, right? We've also got forward CRUD functionality, so I can go ahead and delete old existing articles. So in that case, very nicely delete them, go ahead and review my plan. I can even go to my account, my billing, and I can even switch my membership types, get my statements, get my payments, everything inside of my membership. And this is being pulled through from Clerk Billing. So we have a full featured app right here, and it's using so much awesome tech behind the scenes. We're going to go ahead and answer a couple of questions before we break down the tech stack. But a couple of noticeable mentions is MongoDB is making this entire thing powerful, capable. Sorry, we've got MongoDB Atlas powering everything today. So I'm going to go through a couple of myths because I always get questions about MERN-stack, MongoDB. I'm going to clear that up today. So I'm going to give a couple of myths that people are a little bit kind of concerned about, or should I use this or should I use that? Hopefully it gives you guys a bit of understanding and then you guys can see for yourself. But this essentially is Atlas, which is essentially MongoDB in the cloud. So it's effectively powered up. So we're going to go ahead and do a couple of cool things with this. And we've also got Clerk powering all of our user authentication and billing needs. Clerk, I don't need to even mention it too much because you guys know already. They are the goats of authentication in my opinion. I use them in several SaaS companies. We use them in and out, through and through. They are just awesome for everything we need. Multi-factor authentication, session management, email, one-time passcodes, all of that good stuff. It is inside of Clerk and it's so fast to go ahead and get rolling with. Right. So with that said, let's break down the entire tech stack. Before we do, I've gone ahead and included all of the code for you guys. So what I need you to do is go to the link in the description. Firstly, if you're using, for example, while you follow me in this tutorial, when you sign up for MongoDB and Clerk, make sure it's completely free, by the way, right? All we need you to do is go through the link in the description. It tells them that you came from Sunny's video and you're a member of the Papa Fam, and that allows me to do this more for free, which is obviously a win for everyone. So make sure you go through the links in the description. And as an extra thank you to all of you guys, I've gone ahead and included the entire code base. So all you need to do is pop in your name, your email. So I can just pop in name and email. Let's pop in Sunny Sanger +2. Okay, it thinks I'm a robot. So let's go ahead and quickly do this right now on stream. Lovely, right? Can you imagine I failed that on stream? Wow. All right. Go ahead and submit. And what we've done to make things easier for you is some of you weren't getting the email all the time. So we've gone ahead and sent you an email, but we've also included the links in the thank you screen now. So you can go ahead and click through these links, which are my affiliate links. And again, that is a massive thank you to you guys. And it allows me to do what I do more of. So you can go ahead and click on the Clerk link, the MongoDB link, and the full AI Newsletter SaaS code source code over here, and you'll get access automatically to it. And of course, if anything is difficult, you can feel free to check out our flagship Zero to Full Stack Hero, right? More on that in a moment. Before we jump into anything else, I think it's worth diving into the tech stack for today's build. Okay, so a couple of questions as well. As I'm going to answer a question, introduce a bit of tech, answer a question, introduce a bit of tech. I think that's going to be a fun way to do this bit before we dive in. Okay, so let's pull up my friendly screen brush tool. I don't know what that line is. What the heck is that? What is that? Okay, get rid of that. I've also got a pen, but I'm not going to use the pen as much today. I'm getting used to the pen, right? But if you're inside of either the University of Code or Zero to Full Stack Hero, you will be inside of one of my coaching calls, seeing us break things down in a very cool way. All right, I do see Priyanshu's question as well. I appreciate you. I will answer that in a moment. All right, guys, firstly, Next.js 16. We are using it. We have the React compiler in play right now as well. So we have Next.js 16 in the mix. Sorry, I don't know why that disappeared. Next.js 16 in the mix. Absolutely awesome. That means, of course, we are using React 19, which includes the React compiler. Now, why is this such a big deal? One, it's a lot faster. Two, it allows us to get rid of memoization things such as use callback, use memo, and all this other stuff. So we're going to go ahead and eradicate all of that, make life a lot easier. I'm happy with that. I think you guys are too. Right, we're going to go ahead and make this app entirely beautiful with our friends over at Tailwind CSS. In particular, we're using Tailwind CSS version 4. Okay. And then of course we have MongoDB. Now, if you don't know what MongoDB is, I don't know where you've been. They've been a leader in the game for a very long time. I think there's a lot of misconception around it. So I think we're going to cover that up today, but they're an incredibly powerful platform. And I'm going to show you lots of cool ways to work with them, interact with them. And of course, we are going to even make it even more supercharged by wrapping this in something called an ORM, which is known as Prisma. Okay, so I don't know why that's so small because it's a pretty big deal. Prisma. Okay, Prisma ORM. Now you can simply Google that. But this allows us to effectively have things like relations, schemas at a much higher level. This is going to really allow us to do some pretty cool things. I'm going to show you the entire flow with how you can use Prisma inside of your app, deploy it to a MongoDB database, all for free, by the way. I've got you covered, right? And then, of course, make sure it's all working as we need it. And of course, with that, because we're using a schema, of course, I'm using TypeScript. If you're not using TypeScript in today's day and age, you're living in a wild west, my friend. So we want to make sure you're using that, right? We're also going to be introducing Biome. If you don't know what Biome is, it's a very fast formatting, linting, checking tool. It's basically going to replace your ESLint, your Prettier, all of it in one go. And it's so fast because it was built on top of Rust. And for that reason, I just think it's awesome. And it's now included as well in the Next.js starter template. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff there. We have Clerk, of course, for the authentication and the billing. So I'll make that a bit smaller. We've got Clerk for the authentication plus the billing. So they handle everything. And what's amazing about this is you might be wondering, hang on, Sunny, don't they use Stripe? Well, yes, they do use Stripe under the hood, but that doesn't stop you from adding it to a demo portfolio because they have a gateway account. So if you have struggles setting up your, Stripe, if in case, you're in a country that isn't supported, but you still want a demo app to showcase to a future employer or somebody, then you can go ahead and just use Clerk's gateway, which is awesome. And I'll show you how to do it all today. And it's really, really fast, really, really easy. It's amazing. Of course, we're going to be coding today with Cursor as well. Right, so we're going to be using Cursor as well. And in case you're wondering, oh my God, he's using Cursor, which is coding. I'm using AI and everything like that. Guys, if you're not leveraging this stuff, you will get left behind by devs who are leveraging it. So I might as well show you how to use it correctly. And that is what we're effectively doing in our brand new community, which is coming very, very shortly. All I need you to do is get the code for free. You'll be added to the email list and I will let you know when it comes out. But I'm going to get you covered on all of the, what I like to call next gen developer setups, right? So we've got, oh, nice. We've got some OGs in the house. It's so confusing because I only see your usernames now. So I get really confused. But Jamie, what's up, dude? Good to see you. So we've got Cursor. In fact, we're actually using Cursor 2.0, which is awesome, right? So even that in the mix. Now, we are also using TurboPack, which is inside of Next.js 16. We've got the app router. We're using a bunch of things like server components. And I'm going to be teaching you all about server components, server actions, and also when to use client components, right? So the kind of flow and when to use them. So client components. Okay. So tons of things going on over here. So lots and lots of good things to jump in. Now, let's go into a deep dive on this MongoDB. So obviously this is powering the entire database, and there are some often misconceptions about this. And I think it's something which needs to be absolutely cleared up. Oh, by the way, yeah, Jay, very good point. I forgot to mention, we're actually using Shadcn as well. So awesome point, Shadcn for all of those beautiful UI components inside the app, right? But MongoDB, effectively, let's just refer to it as our database because that's what it is, right? So in fact, we're using MongoDB Atlas. Now, I'm going to go ahead and dive through some of the points I want to mention earlier. So a couple of things which I thought, even myself for a fair amount of time, which kind of resonated with me. But a couple of things. Now, the first one is MongoDB is NoSQL. It has no schema. Well, yes, actually, you can define very strong schema validation using something like Prisma. Okay, so if you want schemas inside of MongoDB, then of course you can go ahead and use schema, either Mongoose or Prisma, right? I've already used Mongoose in another video before, so today we are using Prisma. I like to be all well-rounded so I can show you all of the things, right? We also have another question sometimes where it's, but Sunny, other apps are, they're real-time and that means that they're better and everything like that. So real-time is often a question that we try and find an answer for. Well, actually, MongoDB has something called change streams, right? So change streams allow us to go ahead and actually listen to events that are happening on the database, as for example, database updates, and it's perfect for real-time dashboards, notifications, and live apps. It's not just storage, it's literally an event-driven powerhouse. So you can do all of that as well, right? So in case, I keep seeing in the chat, a lot of people saying you're not using Mongoose. Yeah, but this is the reason, guys. MongoDB is extremely powerful, and Prisma with MongoDB is an awesome partnership, right? So another one is, but Sunny, I want a production ready server, right? I want something which is going to be ready for production. Is MongoDB ready for production? Yeah, 100%. Now you can scale it. You might have heard of these terms, but you can scale it horizontally. And what does that mean? It effectively means you can use sharding, replica sets, horizontally across several servers. And you can also go ahead and serve it vertically, right? So you can scale it, vertically. And that means that you effectively get a bigger machine as opposed to, getting many machines, right? So you can go ahead and scale it in both ways. And if that doesn't convince you, big names like Adobe, Uber, and eBay all use MongoDB. And if you think that they're not production apps, then correct me. But they are incredible things. Now, a couple of other things, like, I mentioned about schemas, and you might be wondering, well, things like, relations and all of this stuff. So a relation is effectively when we have a user who is connected to somewhere else in our database, and we have these relationships, and mostly we see this in like SQL databases, but we want that behavior in something like MongoDB. There you go. I've got an answer for you there as well, because we can actually go ahead, and MongoDB natively can use joins. It can use something called the lookup operator. So MongoDB actually has something called the lookup operator. So it looks something like this. If you're wondering, well, that's kind of confusing. Well, because we're using Prisma, it's going to be a lot easier than you think. Okay. So Prisma is going to make that whole journey very smooth for us. We can easily model relationships without pain. Okay. So we're going to teach you all of this today. And also, in case you're wondering, well, MongoDB is only local. I don't understand why we might be doing this. Well, in this case, it's cloud ready. And that's where Atlas comes in. So if you ever see me say MongoDB Atlas, that is effectively what we're talking about. Is MongoDB Atlas is MongoDB in the cloud. So it's got automated scaling, global clusters, backup, integrated AI tooling, a bunch of stuff. So effectively, it's just a managed MongoDB. And they have a generous free tier. So in that case, that's why we're going to go ahead and show you today. So there's a couple of, example myths about, why you might, be confused. And for those real tech geeks out there, in case anyone's wondering, a lot of the time, you might be using it on an external server. So you may see sometimes that external servers locked in at MongoDB version 3.2. So anyone who this may address, I know there's some technical person out there that this is going to hit, and they'll be like, wow, oh my God, it makes so much sense. MongoDB has version 4 and major versions ahead of it, but most of the time, the Linux distribution that it's running on isn't supportive of it. So that's the reason why you might see that. Okay. So there you go. Right. This is our tech stack for today. It's a solid production tech stack, and we are going to dive into this build right now. Now, I want to go ahead and mention as well, when we are building today's app, I want to highlight our approach. So now, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the last builds, but what we're doing now effectively is I'm giving you the entire code base, because these apps are getting really big. They're getting really big. They're getting really powerful apps. So what I want you guys to understand is the focus is more on teaching you at a higher level, and then teaching you how you can apply things like AI tooling, how you can code yourself. You can do both if you really want. But my approach here is being realistic and showing you guys this is effectively the way the industry is moving. So I want to show you guys how we're going to go ahead and leverage things like AI to go ahead and build big segments of our app fast, but make sure we do it effectively, safely, and we can trust it. Okay. So someone says, is this live or recorded? This is absolutely 100% live. Let me go ahead and actually read some of your comments now before we dive in. So obviously this is FeedStack, the app that we're building. We've got Haiti in the house, France in the house, Sierra Leone in the house. Before I carry on reading, I'm just going to show you this even works for CNN and NYT. Obviously I've got some settings, so it may talk about coding as well, but let's generate a newsletter as I carry on responding. So we've got Son of Code goes, love your energy, love your consistency. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much. Just make sure you destroy that like button, because we're about to cross over 100 likes already. That's awesome, guys. All right. Moses goes, he needs to go viral with this energy. I appreciate you so much. There's lots of thank you in the chat. Again, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. We've got Priyan goes, Sunny, how do I research ideas? What's your source of inspiration? Like these are next level things. Honestly, we sit around the table, we brainstorm, we really get into a headspace with it, and we find real problems that we can solve and then teach you guys for free. Okay. So all of that stuff is basically covered. And then me and Jay have some seriously heavy sit downs where we go and do it. Now, Jamie goes, Cursor 2 is on another level. I tried it last night, had it working on 2 features at once in separate work trees. It's nuts, guys. It's absolutely nuts. I'm going to show you today how I like to use it. And if you want to know more about how you can use Cursor 2 to its full, crazy, powerful potential, then I will go ahead and just point you towards our flagship, which is papareact.com/course. There's a link in the description, 0 to Full Stack Hero 2.0. What I'm telling you is if you join 0 to Full Stack Hero now, you will get a lifetime offer into the next community, which I'm about to drop. It's essentially built for next-gen developers, built for the AI movement. We are moving so fast internally. I have lots of, by the way, if you didn't know, I have a software agency where we build apps for lots of places, and we're using AI and building apps faster than ever at a safe, incredible level. So I'm going to be teaching you all of that. You can join in here. And if you just want to go ahead and get the code and be notified when we launch that community, all you need to do is get the code for 100% free through the link in the description. And I will literally email you the second we launch it. And I promise you it's affordable for everyone. My goal is to make education accessible for everyone in the coding space. Without further ado, let's dive straight into the build. All right, so let's go ahead and jump straight in. So we're going to go to Next.js. I'm going to do create next app. Create next app. And I like to do things in front of you, show you guys how I would do every single thing, you know, so literally down to this level, right? You know, npx create next app latest, like whatever it may take. I want to show you at that level. So I want to go ahead and create a separate, you know, let's just organize a few things. And apologies if my computer is a bit choky right now. It's a bit of a strange situation, but So, oh yeah, that's a very good question, actually. Someone just asked us, Sonny, why didn't you go the full way and go ahead and add something like resend and add the feeds to a React email template, send the newsletter all in one app? Firstly, great question. And it's a good thing that you're asking that. The reason why we didn't is because, one, we use a lot of different platforms. We use Kajabi for our internal platform for education wise. There's loads of different platforms you can use. There's Substack and all these other kind of, you know, email generation tools, newsletter tools. So what we wanted to do is effectively be uniform across all. So you could use this tool in conjunction with those apps and you'd be able to benefit off of it. So in this case, that's why we've made the UI more focused around quickly getting access to this. The goal of this is to really shortcut things, right? So you'll get essentially all of the parts that you need, all of the, you know, effectively the core areas, the top announcements, the title, the subtitles, all of these things for a cheap price, right? So in this case, $15 a month, right? So absolutely cheap. It's an awesome SaaS idea. It's a micro SaaS for a user, and this saves you a ton of time. We know this because we have 20,000 plus people on a newsletter where we send emails to every single week. So this is a pain point that I had, so we're building for it, okay? So let's go ahead and do it. So, and trust me when I say this is enough to build what you need inside of a newsletter, right? Because this gives you a framework to then step up from and go ahead. And for example, if I was to say to Jay, we need to make our weekly newsletter now I've got an awesome base. I can take this base and I can go ahead and expand on it. I can go ahead and expand. And remember, there's millions of features you can add to this to make it even better. But I'm giving you all of this on a plate for free today. So you guys are absolutely welcome. Let's dive into the build, right? I hope that answers the question, right? So in this case, we're going to run create next app to go ahead and get started. If npx doesn't work for you, you simply need to install Node and it will go ahead and work. So we're going to go ahead and do this right now. So I'm going to do not in there. I'm going to cd into my documents and my builds folder because I like things being neat. And then here, we're going to name our app something, right? So I'm going to go ahead and name our app, for example, AI Newsletter YouTube SaaS. Okay. And then with that, we're going to go ahead and proceed. So I'm trying to make this as big as I can. Oh, there you go. That's so nice. And now here's the interesting part. Would you like to use recommended Next.js defaults? No, actually. This one, I want to go ahead and use custom settings or my previous settings. But if I show you custom settings, I think that might be a bit better. So let's do custom settings. Would you like to use TypeScript? Yes. What linter would you like to use? Biome. So I want you to use Biome today. React compiler, 100%. Yes. TL1 CSS. Yes. Would you like to use code in the source directory? No. Would you like to use the app router? Yes. TurboPack? Yes. Customize import alias? No. The default is fine. And that's perfect. Okay. And then the next time you start up, you can just reuse your previous settings. Okay. So step one, while that's happening, what I want you to do is we're going to cd into that directory now. So we're going to do cd AI Newsletter YouTube SaaS. I'm going to do cursor dot. If you're using VS Code, you can use code dot, or you can simply go into cursor, click open folder, and then do the same. Cursor dot just effectively opens a cursor instance inside of this cursor IDE. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop it here like so. We'll make it quite bigger for you guys to see it. And then on the right hand side, if you do Command I, you can see our agent flow. So this is right now. I use Cursor Ultra in case anyone's wondering. So I've got Max and a bunch of other stuff. I use it every day, so I would definitely recommend it. We're not sponsored by them, but it's just an awesome tool. And then you've got these two new things now. You got the agent workflow and the editor workflow. Command each switches you between them. We'll get into that a bit later, right? But for now, this is our starting point for our app. So I want to go into /app. I'm actually going to kill my previous app. So I'm going to run that on a separate port. But for now, all I want you to do is type in, we're using package log right now, but I want to switch to PNPM. I'm going to do PNPMI, and this will go ahead and actually install a PNPM log file instead of having bloated NPM node modules everywhere. Okay. So with that in mind, we can run our app. We can do PNPM dev, or if you're using NPM run dev. Okay. So this will start up our app on Next.js 16, Logos 3000. And what you'll notice is that this should be using, if we go to next config, the React compiler. Okay, so now we have the React compiler in play. It's a lot faster. I definitely can tell you that, right? So we go to Logos 3000. You should get this page, and that is awesome. That means you've done something right. Well done. Let's go ahead and pop it over to the side. So we've got our workflow. This is what I want you to be in right now. Command J to add the terminal. Command B, you should have Biome as well. So before we get started, a couple of unique extensions I want you to add. You can feel free to get these if you want. Recommended tab. Biome, handy one. Obviously, we're using Biome today, right? It's got a couple of useful things inside there. ES7, React Redux native snippets. We have Tailwind as well. We have Prisma for Prisma syntax highlighting. Tailwind CSS, IntelliSense. And you can feel free, you've seen all of mine here. You can feel free to add in whichever ones you want, okay? So if you ever see me using some cool shortcut, know that I've upgraded my IDE with these extensions, okay? So also thank you for smashing that like button because we just smashed over 100 likes. We've literally got over 250 people watching live right now across platforms, so I appreciate y'all. And yeah, let's get that like count up. All right, so let's go ahead and do Command J, and now we have it. So first step, I wanna go to page.tsx, and I want to simply go ahead and prepare ourselves. So everything from main down, we're going to go ahead and delete. We're going to get rid of all of these class names, which are Tailwind CSS utility classes, get rid of this. And we're simply going to type in h1 hello world. Okay. Command B, and we should have this. This is our starting point for the app. At this moment, what I now want you to do is go through those links in the description, because we have to set up our MongoDB and we have to set up our clerk. These are requirements because we need to go ahead and get this up and running before we do anything. So first step, we're going to click on get started, and then we're going to sign up. Now I'm going to sign up with Google. I already have an account, but I'm going to go ahead and use a separate account. So hopefully I can show you the entire workflow from scratch. So let's use my team account. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Oops. I've actually got it up and running in a few places. Oh, there we go. Signing in, team at papareact.com. And then you should get to this page, okay? So you can go ahead and take a tour if you like, right? I'm going to dismiss that for now, but you can see we have no clusters at the moment, okay? So in the next step I want to do is I want to go ahead and click on the cluster's been paused, coaching call demo. You can see I actually done one before. So I want to create a cluster, okay? Now here, what I want to do is you can see I've got different ones over M10, Flex, M30. I've already used my free one. You will actually have a free one. So if I went to resume my cluster, let me see if I can actually edit that configuration. So once you've created it, there'll be a free option here for you, by the way. It'll be called M0. You simply go ahead, enter your cluster name, enter your provider. You can choose either or any of these. Go ahead and do tags, cloud backup, auto scale, whatever you want to do, and then you create the deployment. And you can even preload it with a sample data set or whatever you wish to do, right? In this case, these are paid, but we do have a free option as well. So this one is being created. You know what? Maybe I'll just sign into the other account. I believe we might have one more account that won't have a user signed in previously. So we can try it, see for ourselves if that will work. So let me go back to the link in the description, which was this one right here. Oh, we can do it here. Yep. Or we can just do it here. So Google. And then I'm going to do papareact.team@gmail. Right. Time to focus, guys. There we go. And yeah, that's a very strange issue, but I guess it works anyway. I didn't press anything after that. Yeah, this is a fresh account. This is awesome. Submit, and then ignore that. I guess that could be my situation, but either way, it gets past it. The MongoDB for every use case. Awesome stuff. Let it do its thing. And then in a moment, we should be able to set up. So skip personalization for now. I'm not interested, but you should do that. And then let's create our first cluster. Now, here we have it. M10, flex, and free. There we go. I told you I wasn't lying, right? And let's do cluster 0. That's fine. We can call this, what is it even, my cluster? You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to keep it at cluster 0 to be fair. AWS, Google Cloud, you can pick based on what you want. Region, right now it's recommended Bahrain because I'm in the Middle East. And then you can add tags if you want, and then it can create a deployment. So let's go ahead and create a deployment right now. And you can see it's now creating. Now, this is the interesting part. So it's created a username and a password. Now, of course, you shouldn't expose these keys. I'm trusting you guys here. If you do some madness, I'm going to have to obviously go ahead and you're going to ruin the build. So I'm going to have to go ahead and do that on live. So don't touch this, please. But in this case, you need to copy the username. I'm going to go ahead and copy my username. And I'm going to copy my password, and you want to keep these somewhere safe, and we want to create a database user. Okay. And it would have already created that for us. And then you want to click choose a connection method. Now here you can see we've got a bunch of options. We've got drivers, compass, shell, MongoDB for VS Code. So what I actually want you to do as a step 1 is inside of your VS Code, I want you to go ahead and add the MongoDB extension. So type in MongoDB. And you want essentially this one. I think I already have it, so that's why it's not popping. Yeah, MongoDB for VS Code. Connect to MongoDB and Atlas directly from your VS Code, right? Preslav, what's good? I love to see you here, right? And this is exactly what we needed. You want to go ahead and do that, and then Command B. At the top here, you should see, or in the drop down, you should see MongoDB. You can simply pin it, and now you can see I've got 2 clusters on there already. So let's go ahead and actually get my cluster where I want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that over there so we can shift between the 2. And now here. So let's go to MongoDB for VS Code. And you can see it gives me this connection string. This is very important, guys. Okay. So what I want you to do now is grab your connection string. And I want you to go ahead and click copy and go over here, click on plus. And then you can see we are not connected. Connect with the connection string. Paste in that connection string. And you should be able to see that we have some instances or some examples here. We've got admin, config, local, and sample mflix. So even here you can see sample, movie flicks, got 3,000 documents. Why is this handy? Because look, we can actually inspect data inside of our workflow. This is awesome, right? Now there is also another trick that you can do. If you're using Cursor, you can go to your settings, go to your cursor settings, and then go to tools and MCP. And there is a Prisma one that you can use, which we're going to use later on. Right, but for now, just know that there is one there, and I believe there could even be a Mongo one. So yeah, there can be a lot of things there. Now that's going to help us with debugging later, so we can go ahead and basically debug this cluster now. Okay, straight from our VS Code terminal. Okay, cool. So that's step 1. Step 2, we need to go ahead and we're going to pause on this right now. We're going to go over to Clerk, the link that I told you. Go to the link in the description. It's actually got a very nice URL from now on. It's called go.clerk.com/sunny. Awesome, right? Oh, dude, please message me. Please message me. I'm so sorry. I've got so busy lately. All right, we're going to click on Start Building for free. Okay, and I want to click on Sign Up. All right, so you can do it both ways. To be fair, there is that work. There's 2 ways you can do it. I'm going to click on Google firstly and sign up because I'm going to show you the way with the documentation. I can go into our personal account here, not a problem. And then we can go in and create the account. So let's actually make this full screen. And there we go. All right. So in this case, I've done loads of apps, obviously, using Clerk. So we can create a new application. You'll see this screen for the first time if it's your first time. We're going to type in AI Newsletter SaaS YouTube. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and you can even toggle all of your authentication methods as you wish. This is what I love about Clerk. If you want Facebook login, bam, you have Facebook login. It's so slick and easy to go ahead and do. Okay. So let's go ahead and create the application. And then we're going to go ahead and see here, we've got the pnpm install commands. So we're going to go firstly install Clerk into our project. So Command J, we're going to go ahead and split the terminal. So you can do 2 things when you're working with this. Command J, and you can have my server running on the left, and I usually have a second one for installing stuff. So we're going to install it, and then we've got an environment file. Okay. So I'm going to do my .env. So we don't have a .env, so we need to create that. So we're going to create a new file at the top level called .env.local. Or let's just call it .env, right? It's absolutely fine. And we're going to paste it in. Now, obviously, this is a secret key. Do not expose this. I'm showing it because I'm going to invalidate everything afterwards. But you shouldn't show that key, okay? Then we need to add the middleware. Now, because we are using Next.js 16, we now have to call the middleware file proxy.ts. So what we can do is we can copy the contents of this, but it's not going to be a middleware. It's going to be at the top level, and it's going to be called proxy.ts. And we're going to paste in that right there. Okay. Now, while we do this, what this is actually doing is this is adding a proxying step. So effectively, I like how they shifted the name to proxy now, because effectively that's what's happening more than middleware. So every request that goes through our app is getting proxied through this proxy file. And basically it's going ahead and checking the clerk, it's running it through clerk middleware. Now, right now it's not really doing anything, right? But what we can actually go ahead and do here, guys, is we can actually go and add in a protected route checker. So I can go here and I can say const is protected route, and I can import create route matcher, and I can say anything with dashboard and / ahead of it, anything there should be protected. So that means that you should not be able to go there unless you are authenticated. And this stops me from a lot of annoying issues where I would have to go ahead and, you know, make sure if the user is there, blah, 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 inside the dashboard. I just want to make sure if you're in the dashboard in any capacity, it shouldn't let you there until you're logged in. So it should pop up with a native login flow. Cool. Now to apply that, all we have to do is simply go ahead and add in the following code snippet. And all of this is found on Clerk's documentation. So we're going to add in this arrow function with an async auth request. And then we've got in this block, if it's a protected route, we can go ahead and do the following. So you can actually keep it as a one-liner. If it's protected route, just simply go ahead and run auth protect. And that will make sure that it will go ahead and stop a user from getting through if they're not authenticated. Okay. So that's that done. Then we need to go to our layout and wrap our file. Okay. So first step here is I'm going to go into our layout file. So let's go over to our code, go to our layout. And as you can see, it's that one. I just did Command P to get that quick search up there. And then we want to go down here, and I want to simply wrap the entire app inside of something called the clerk provider. Okay. Then I want to go over here, Control Spacebar. And as you can see, we've gone ahead and imported it like so. Okay. Then I want you to refresh your app. If it loaded, great. You've done something correct. Well done. Right. And as you can see, it runs. Then now we can create our first user, and we can start using Clerk. Right. And the next step actually would have been billing. So we can do this now, we can do it later, but eventually what we're effectively going to do is we're going to go down to billing, and you guys can see right here in settings, we're going to enable user billing, and we're going to click on save, right? And then you can see learn how to use billing. It's got a nice billing guide. And this is what I was talking about. Typically, once you go to production, you can go ahead and use a Stripe account. However, you can use Clerk Payment Gateway right away to test payments immediately. So if you've ever had an issue where Clerk is not available or Stripe is not available where you are in the world, simply use Clerk's Payment Gateway, and it will solve that issue for you for your development needs, right? So that way you can still create a portfolio, a demo app, and so forth, and still demo this out. And then when you're able to set up a Stripe account in a place where you can support it, you can simply switch to Stripe account and then simply add in a couple of details. All right, Mario's in the chat. Yo, what's good? He goes, Sunny here is once again with one more amazing build. I appreciate you so much. We've got some OG Diamond members in the house right now. Right. So thank you so much for tuning in. Right. So next up, we'll do subscription plans. We're going to connect this afterwards. Okay. So we'll come back to this. So heading back over to our build. Now what I want to do is I want to set up, let's set up Prisma. Okay. So Prisma is the next step that we want to do. I'm just going to go ahead and actually just rearrange a couple of things on my screen so I can do a few things a bit nicer. Right now, I've got all this screen real estate that I'm kind of losing out on for silly reasons. And it's kind of hard to prepare a few things. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up Prisma next. Or, you know, before we do Prisma, let's do Shadcn, because that's an awesome thing to add in. So I want you to go to ui.shadcn.com, head over to docs at the top, and you'll see installation right here. Click on Next.js, and you can see this simple install command over here. So once we simply go to our app, we paste it in, and this will go ahead and add Shadcn into our project. Now, if you don't know what Shadcn, game changer tool, it's basically effectively components that we pull in. So you can see right here in the instruction, it's a set of beautifully designed accessible components and a code distribution platform. It works with your favorite frameworks and AI models, open source, open code. It's awesome, right? What's really cool as well is you can go ahead and connect it with your AI platform by using the MCP server and adding this into your code base. So in this case, if you're using I'm using Cursor, so you can actually just run this command and it will actually add it inside. So let's do that right now. And why might you want to do this? Because what's really cool about this is that if I use an agent, firstly, let's just do all of the default settings. And yes, we may need to restart our app sometimes. Now, what I can do is I can go ahead and run that command, mcp init client cursor. And what it will do is it will create a local cursor mcp.json file for this project. And it will add in the Shadcn latest MCP. Okay, that's awesome. Now, why is that really handy, guys? Because you can do this in a project level or you can do it at the cursor parent level. But this means if I was to do command I and ask agent a question and basically say, you know, add in a table, for example, from Shadcn, what it can now do is actually access the Shadcn registry and it knows which components it has access to. So that's really cool. Okay. Now, the next step, what we're going to have to do is rerun our app. So we're going to have to pnpm dev it, because that's going to fail because obviously we changed quite a lot in that instance. And then we want to do a refresh and we should see our app. Okay. So now we've successfully added Shadcn. You can even go ahead and update your metadata if you wish to AI Newsletter, for example, AI Newsletter SaaS, even over here. There's a platform creating and managing your newsletter. There you go. Okay. So you can do something like that. And then back over here now, we want to go ahead and set up Prisma. Okay. So Prisma is next on the list. So let's go into Prisma. And what I want you to do is, oops, not this one. I'm going to type in Prisma Next.js. Okay. And you have Next.js database with Prisma. We have how to use Prisma ORM with Next.js. Lots of different guides here. I show you this because in case you ever get lost, I'm showing you how to do it on your own. Okay. So first step is we've already created the next app, so we don't need to run this again. We can go ahead and install the dependencies. So we have these dependencies right here. And then we have DB output generated Prisma. But the only issue with this is I want to do it with actually my, I actually want to do it with my MongoDB instance. So I just want to double check one thing before we get started. So that way you don't get confused. Remember, if you do get lost at any moment, the entire source code is available for you and I've given it to you. So you guys can feel free just to simply go over there and get started with that, right? So yeah, we're going to go ahead and run these commands here. Okay. Postgres. Oh no, so sorry, not this one, other databases right here. Yeah. We're not using Postgres, we're using other databases. So npm install Prisma TSX and Prisma client with .env. Okay. So head back over here. Let's go ahead and install this. And that's using npm. But what it will do is if you do run an npm command, it'll simply just add it into your pnpm packages, I believe, right? I believe. Actually, no, I don't think it does. pnpm. Let's do it ourselves just in case. pnpm install. There you go. Yeah, see, it doesn't actually do it. And the reason why you don't use pnpm is because it uses your local global node modules instead of blowing out per project, right? So once that's done, then what we can do is we can go down here and once installed and initialize Prisma in your project. So npx initialize blah, 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 right? App generated Prisma. So app generated. I want to see, where did they put my generated? I don't think we did that, to be fair. So instead of even running that command, oh no, we still need that. So to be fair, let's run it. npx prisma init db output app generated Prisma. And then we can obviously change it up as we need to. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and run that and let's see what it does. And then give that a moment. And in case you're wondering, Sonny, what the heck is Prisma? You're confusing me. All right. Prisma. Let's go ahead and run you through what it is. Prisma. Yeah, so if you actually really want to know something, you can just type in explain Prisma. Yeah? Explain Prisma. And you can do AI mode in Google. And for free, you can go ahead and get a nice breakdown. Prisma is a next generation open source ORM, object relational mapper, database toolkit for Node and TypeScript applications. And basically it gives us a client, basically a type-safe query builder that allows us to interact with the database using JavaScript or TypeScript code instead of writing raw SQL, which is much nicer, right? We've got migration systems, so we can go ahead and actually migrate an entire database schema. We've got the studio, which allows us to view what's inside of the database. right? So lots of cool things as well, and a bunch of other things. So in case you're wondering, I always like to teach you how, I always like to teach how you can learn by yourself, right? As opposed to just getting spoon-fed, right? So here we are. Would you like to authenticate? Yes, we would. Google. And now I need to authenticate in the correct account. So in this case, papareact.team was the account that I set things up on. Continue. And let's let that do its thing. And as you can see, it logged in to the correct account. And we can close that window. Now you can see, select your region. It says, let's set up your Postgres database. No, we don't actually want a Postgres. We do not want that. I did not want a Postgres. Why did it do a Postgres? I want to see if there's a command for... Let's see, command for init Prisma with MongoDB. Let's quickly check that, and you can search the internet, check it out. This command is to data source provider MongoDB. Let's use this one, right? So I'm going to cancel this with Control-C, run npx Prisma init data source provider Mongo. That's better, right? That's what we wanted to do. Now we have it. This is what I wanted, yeah. So Prisma schema was created at Prisma schema, schema.prisma, and then Prisma config as well. And then we've got a bunch of stuff. And then also install.env, which we already did earlier at the above. We already did that. Remember here, we done .env. So that way it can use our environment files and then save the database URL in the env file and then run Prisma generate to generate the Prisma client. So a few steps, we're going to go ahead and learn about what the hell's going on right now. Okay. And again, you can go ahead and actually speak to agents and ask them questions and be like, explain Prisma to me. If you go to the ask mode, you can just simply ask it and you get a private tutor there and then. This is what I teach my students. Learn how to learn yourself, right? So first step, we're going to schema.prisma. And you can see here, we've got Prisma client. Now, a few little changes here I want to do. I actually want to change this to Prisma client.js. So I want this to actually be Prisma client-js. I don't want an output. And what this does is, it actually saves it to the default output. So we don't have to actually factor in a few other things. It will just save it in the local node modules, which is actually a bit cleaner. It's quite nice. We've got MongoDB, and then we've got an environment database URL. So inside of our env file, remember here, they actually added in this for us. So just to make this a bit easier to see what's going on, this was inserted. This obviously is clerk's information. And then this is obviously going to be Prisma's information, okay? Prisma, sorry. Yeah. So what is this one right here? Okay. So you see we've got MyDB, rewrites true, majority, and all this stuff, right? So how do we get that, right? Like how do we do that? So in this case, remember we had our little our connection URL that we had earlier on. So my one was actually, if we go to edit configuration, no, not this one, sorry. If we go to connect, here you can see in drivers, Node.js, blah, blah, blah. Here you can see MongoDB, SRV, Papa React, and then you got your password, right? So you want to replace this with your password, and then you've got comma app name cluster 0, okay? Now, what they do by default is they haven't given it a database name, okay? So what I'll do is I'm going to add one in here. So you see MyDB, that part there, right? So we actually need to add that in. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paste in this Papa React DB user, and I want to replace this with our password. Now our password in this instance that we used, you don't have to, obviously you have your own password, and this is all private, hence why it's not a public, next public environment variable. Save it, and then you can see app name cluster 0. But here's the interesting part. So here you want to give it a database name. So what I would say here is I'm just going to use MyDB. Okay, and we're going to hit save. And this is effectively how we're going to connect to our database with a connection string. So now that's going to go ahead and connect as we needed it to. Okay, underneath here now, we actually build out a schema. The schema is effectively the shape of our database. Okay, so this is going to be something that basically shapes all the database, and we're going to use Prisma obviously to do this in a way that's really nice and clean. So what I'm going to do here is all of this code has been given to you inside of the GitHub link in the description. Remember the sign up link. All you needed to do to go ahead and get that, guys, was go over to the newsletter build form, put in your details, and then you would have reached this page, put in your details, hit submit, and then you would have got through to this page right here. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then you'll get access to the entire source code, right? And then you can clone it and see for yourself. But here, step one, we have the model, which is the user. We have an ID which represents the user. We're automatically incrementing it, the default value. and we're mapping to ID. Now, what is that? What does that map mean? It means that effectively we can call it ID, but we can map to a native field underscore ID, right? And then these are all just descriptors. If you ever don't understand what this is, what we can do is you can either go ahead and add to chat, quick edit, this is cursor again, or you can simply press Command I and say explain the at commands here, or at arguments here, right? And we can simply switch it to ask mode. We can ask it a question. Obviously, you can do different models. I have a paid account, but there is also a free version. So what you can actually do here is you can go ahead and just check for yourself, and it will literally give you a breakdown. Now, this is what I talked about before. You need to learn how to use your own initiative to teach yourself. And that way you can just streamline ahead of other developers, and you can basically learn really quick, right? So that maps a field name to a different column name in the actual database. So we'll see it as ID, but it will map it to our underscore ID, right? And that's because MongoDB uses ID as a standard primary key name. Now, the object ID specifies a native database type. This tells Prisma that the underlying MongoDB field is an object ID type, even though Prisma represents it as a string, okay? And so forth. So you can go ahead and use that to really teach yourself a bunch, right? Then we have RSS feeds. These are connecting to another model, okay? So these are effectively relations that we're gonna have, right? So let's go ahead and do it. So we've got the user settings next. These are going to be all of the settings for a user. So we've got effectively, let me make it a bit smaller so you can see all of that in one screen. So you've got user setting models here, preferences for newsletter generation. You've got the ID, you've got the user ID. And now notice here, you've got a user ID and you've got the user, which is of type user. This is a relation. So hence why we see at relation. The field that we are referencing, so effectively the primary key, in case you're ever wondering how to go ahead and do relational databases, you have a foreign key in another table and a primary key which maps to the primary key in the first table. And then what you're effectively doing is a sort of a join, right? And then here what we're saying is the user ID references the ID field. So in this case, here we have it. This user ID references the ID field over here. And then we're saying on delete cascade. Now, what does that mean? It means if we deleted a user, we should also automatically delete the user settings. Okay, so that's something which is very, very important, by the way. Okay, and we also have default values like this. Son of Code, I really appreciate this comment. He goes, this is a day of how Sunny leverages AI, guys. Make sure you are learning and taking notes. I cannot stress it enough. We are in a different era right now. Like, you can be an incredibly powerful developer. I am your mentor. I am here to teach you guys. Listen to what I'm saying, because this is an era that's never existed before. You can run, you can fly through stuff right now. I was about to swear. You can fly through stuff right now if you know what you're doing. So listen to me, stay with me, join our community, and I promise you I will literally transform your entire life with this approach, right? Because this is something which is just unbelievably powerful, and you can run an entire solo dev team effectively with it. So we have the RSS feed model here as well. Again, we have a link to articles, and again, we have the user. Now, if you think about this, the RSS feed stores RSS feed information and the metadata about it. So remember those feeds that we were adding in? That's effectively what we're doing. Now, each RSS feed consists of RSS articles, okay? So we have, this is an interesting part. Now, what I've done is in the final build itself, I've added a massive RSS system.md file. So what you can do is you can go ahead and give that a read yourself. And that's basically me documenting everything, how it works, all of that good stuff. And something I didn't mention in the beginning is that we even have caching at such a powerful level. Let's say I went to TechCrunch's RSS feed and I went ahead and grabbed the RSS feed. Now, let's say that was within 3 hours previously. What it will do now, if Jay goes and tries to grab the RSS feed from TechCrunch, I think I said TechCrunch, basically within 3 hours, it won't actually re-scrape and hit the RSS feed again. It will use the cached values from Jay's RSS scrape. And that means that because in 3 hours, we can be safely, roughly assuming that it wasn't going to update. And either way, when we generate, it's going to check for the 3 hour timer. So you're always going to get the up-to-date information within 3 hours. And I've even given a customizable value so you can change it to 1 hour if you really want. This stops rate limiting from RSS feeds. It stops so many issues and it keeps things super efficient. This is where source feed IDs come in, right? So all feed records that reference this article, we have a bunch of deduplication. And I show you all of that inside of that README file. So in the RSS system README file. Right. So in this case, I was just going to paste it in here. So it looks something like this. right? So I'm adding it in. This is effectively what I've gone ahead and created for you guys to explain everything. It's a full guide with articles, with diagrams. I've shown you down to such a crazy extent here, guys, just so you can understand what the hell is going on. So in this case, if we go down here, I don't know why my preview is glitching out, but it's kind of annoying. You can see like caching windows, how cross-user caching works. I've given you diagrams to basically explain if it's ever fetched and how that whole fetch cycle works. So feel free to go and read all of that, right? And article deduplication and all this kind of stuff. So if two articles were consistent across different RSS feeds, it would get rid of all of that issue for you, right? So a lot of stuff to factor in here. You're absolutely welcome. It's been an awesome experience building this. And then we have the final thing, which is the newsletter itself. Okay, these are newsletter generations stored. These are newsletter model. So it stores the generated newsletters with all the AI generated content, the ID, the user, and so forth, right? And again, we cascade if the user was deleted, because we shouldn't keep the newsletters if they're deleted. The user's gone, okay? We have top announcements, suggested titles, the body, which is just a long string, and so forth. So lots of stuff happening. We also create indexes, and this basically makes lookups a lot faster. So if we search a newsletter by user ID, what we're saying is we're preparing that table to say, I'm going to search probably at some point with a user ID created at, the combination of both with a composite search or created at. And basically what that does is it prepares the database to have a faster searchable index. And that basically massively saves us a lot of time over as the app scales up. So all things to factor in, right? So we've got that done now. So we've got our schema Prisma file, okay? Now, next thing I want to check is simply my Prisma config. So we have our Prisma schema, we have our Prisma migrations, we have classic, and we have the URL. And I believe we're good now. I think we've got everything we need. So all we need to do now is run a special command. And if you ever get confused of what this command is, simply go to your package.json. And what you'll notice is, oh, they didn't add it. Interesting. Okay, so I want you to add in a few commands here. It's interesting why I didn't add it. I want you to add in Prisma generate, Prisma push, and Prisma studio. Right? So Prisma generate, Prisma push, and Prisma studio. And I also want to add in something called a post install. This means effectively before build time commences, we should always regenerate the Prisma client. Now, every time we modify the schema in any shape or form, you have to generate a new Prisma client effectively. So we get all of our new types again. That's something important to remember. Okay. The Prisma push effectively pushes this to our cluster. So the cluster live on the internet, right, in the cloud, right? So, and then we have Prisma Studio as well, which helps us out with viewing our data. So let's go ahead and see what happens now. So if I was to type in pnpm, and I can go ahead and say Prisma, and you can see I get my 3 commands. This is actually using Amazon Q. I've got a whole video on that if you want to check that out. It's on the channel. Hit the like button, go check it out, come back, right? So we're going to do Prisma generate. And you can see, it failed, right? So it failed because we're missing database URL. So I'm missing a step here. I did save my .env file, I believe. Yes, I did. Let's go ahead and rerun pnpm dev. Let's see if it picks anything up. Let's do that again. And okay, so Prisma error config, missing requirement database URL. So I'm missing something very, very simple here. Let's go and have a look at what's going on. So let's go to our TypeScript config. So tsconfig, tsconfig, and let's just double check a few things. So we've got everything being included. We've got everything that looks right. And we have our .env. Yep, we have it here. Now I'll show you a debugging approach. Okay, so let me have a quick water break as well. Thank you so much, Marius. I appreciate you so much. He goes, all of these years, it's priceless what you do. Enjoy, guys. I appreciate you, Marius. You're absolute G. All right. So in this case, now what I want to do is, if you have an error like this, right, I want to show you honestly a debugging step. You click this, you click add to chat, and then you can ask it, help locate this error. Okay. And now you can go ahead and hit a search. And effectively, we're running AI against the query. So now debugging has changed, right? If you think I'm going to go through every single thing manually, I typically don't do that, right? I genuinely use this. So in this case, it'll run a few commands. I've got it in some safe issues. The error is coming from our Prisma config, right? Prisma config, database env URL. And I believe I've done something stupid here. So Prisma config, 1 second. Prisma client. I need to go back into my Prisma config, and I forgot what I was doing. Yep. So this is actually not it, but it helped me kind of find where I was going with it. So we don't want to do this. Instead, what I forgot to do is whenever you use the .env config, I kind of jumped over that inside the install steps. But basically, if you go down here, so that was me getting ahead of myself, right? What we needed to do there is, don't do what I just did. I just kind of take your time with it. Go to this bit and you need to import .env config. That's why it's not pulling the configuration. So now if I do Prisma generate, it can see, look, generate a Prisma client. And you see how it pushes it inside the node modules. That's awesome. So if we click into that, now I can see Prisma client is basically generated. Right, so that's all of our type definitions. Now I say I want to push that to the database, right? What do? I simply run the next command. I run Prisma and I do push. Let's do that now. And then you can see it's pushing to the database. And you can see these are a bunch of additions. So see ourselves that applying the following. It added the collections. It added our indexes. And then it's gone ahead and says your index database are now in sync with the Prisma schema. Awesome. So now our cluster is up to date with the schema. So now if I go over here and I reload it, you can see MyDB. So MyDB, look at this. We have all of our users, RSS feed and all that good stuff. We can even see our schema, I don't think. No, we don't see a schema yet, but these are where the documents will live. So now you can actually inspect it very easily. And if you really want to go ahead and take it another step further, you can do pm. So we can go back to that command and you can type in Prisma Studio. And what this will do, guys, is it will open up a studio, which shows us a nicer view where we can add records and so forth. So let's go ahead and add for example, a user record, right? Clerk user ID, let's just say it was ABC. And then we've got a bunch of things here, and let's just save that change, right? Now we've added a user record. So to prove that this has actually been added, we can go ahead, go into Command B, go over here, and we can go to our cluster again, reopen this, click on user, and we should be able to see documents. So sometimes you have to click it open to refresh, or you just click refresh here. You can now see we've got that ABC user here. And from here, I can actually delete the document as well. So I'm showing you two-way kind of manipulation inside of a database. Now, and of course, you can refresh. This is no longer actually there. And then, of course, over inside the database, if we were to go and refresh as well, you can now see it's gone. So this is awesome, right? So now we've got a way to interact with our database. That helps a lot, right? Especially with debugging, okay? So with that in mind now, that helps us. What I want you to then do is I want to go ahead and I'm going to add in something called a Prisma MDC file. So in case we want to ask, any Prisma related questions to our cursor agent, inside of our cursor folder, I'm going to add a rules folder, okay? And inside of this rules folder, I'm going to add something called a Prisma MDC. So if you go to Prisma and you type in Prisma MDC rules, okay? What you'll find is you've got a bunch of, examples here. You've got a bunch of things, awesome cursor rules. There's loads of, different ones you can do. I honestly can't remember where I found mine. It could have been somewhere here, but effectively, you can also do this, guys, by the way, for the Prisma migrations. So I've kind of skipped over all of this. I'm not going to cover migrations today, but you can feel free to absolutely do it, like the migrate dev name in it, and all this kind of stuff, see the sample database and so forth. You can feel free to go ahead and do that. And migrations can be in a separate video, okay? And how we can, access users like this, Prisma user.findMany. We'll show you that afterwards. But what I wanted to do instead was I've already got a Prisma MDC file. So inside the code base, you will get this file, Prisma MDC. Once you add it in, always apply. We can do always apply true, or you can do it in an intelligent approach. You can say apply intelligently whenever the question relates to Prisma, or MongoDB. We should always apply this rule set whenever it's there. And then you're a senior TypeScript developer, and it's just basically got a bunch of instructions as to how, certain things work. For example, error handling. Prisma has these specific errors. Testing code, you should use the following: performance considerations, security best practices, and so forth. So you can really go ahead and keep adding to this if you want, but this effectively teaches us in a really strong way, right? So Sonico goes, wow, Sonny, it's a lot of work from your end. Thank you, Papa. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for seeing that, all right? So now we can start building, all right? So we've got everything effectively set up, the template, the skeleton, all of that good stuff. If you're watching the replay, of course, all of this will be timestamped, so you can actually jump through to the app wherever you need to get to, okay? So what we're gonna do now is go into our app. we're going to go into our page and we're going to start masking things out. Okay, so this is going to represent the landing page. We're using Next.js 16, the app router, of course, and effectively this is going to be the main element that's going to render out. Okay, we have a bit of styling. Now again, I'm not going to teach every single bit of styling here. If you really want to go ahead and understand all of these things, you can again install the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense and highlight over it, and you'll see what it's translating to in CSS language. And again, for dark mode, you can see the same thing. But I'm not going to run so far deep into every single styling decision that was made in this build. I want to focus more on teaching you the high level functionality of this app as opposed to anything else. And again, if this is all sounding kind of crazy right now, above my face right now, there's a QR code. Point your phone camera at it, scan it, join our community, right? So I'm going to add a few things in. So effectively, this is going to become the eventual page. So I just want to go ahead and run my other app on localhost so we can actually see it on localhost 3001. So to localhost 3001, and we should be able to see the app running here. I don't know if it'll break though, because I've got a few issues. Okay, anyway, but in this case, look, we've got the hero section, we've got, you know, features, we've got how it works, we've got a signed in state for effectively the user button, which is a little button that will pop up here. And then we have like the pricing card and the CTA, okay? All different sections. We're gonna keep everything really neat today. So I'm gonna pop these in and then we're gonna build each one. So we're gonna put this in over here. And this is what it's gonna look like. So we've got signed in, which we're gonna use the clerk wrapper to basically say, if we're signed in, we render this out. This is from Next.js, so we already have that. And these we do not have at the moment. So we're gonna highlight these out and we're gonna start with creating a hero banner, okay? So I'm going to show you, sometimes I get the comments saying, you know, Sonny, your code is a bit messy, da, da, da. So I'm going to show you different ways as to how you can organize your code base. How you decide to really move forward with it is up to you. But we are going to use something called Shadcn components. And with that in mind, I'm going to cut my Prisma Studio. I'm going to run to my Shadcn. So it was here, so Shadcn. And I'm going to just show you the last step here, which was adding a button, because what this will do is it will create a components folder for us. So if we like something in Shadcn, we want to add it to our app. Now you can see inside components, we have a UI folder, which is for button. And we also have the components itself. So every Shadcn thing should go in the UI folder. But for example, page specific things, for example, the dashboard, I'm going to put all of the dashboard components inside of here. Okay. So let's start off with the hero itself. So sorry, not that dashboard. We're inside the landing page, right? So it should be landing, right? So the landing page. Now the first section is the hero section. Okay. So I'll show you firstly how we can create one from scratch. We type in hero.tsx and then we can type in RFCE using that special setup that I showed you earlier. So we can use RFC for a default function. And we can say hero. Okay. Now this right here was because of that ES7 snippets extension. So a lot of stuff going on here. But you guys can see for yourself that this is how we quickly get started off. Now to build this out, effectively we have a bunch of UI going on here, right? We have icons from Lucid React. So these automatically got installed when we installed Shadcn. So Lucid React basically gives us a bunch of icons. If we hover over it, you can simply go down. You can actually see the icons. You can click on this link to go to all of the icons, and you can basically search through all the icons in case which, you know, you might need some and so forth. Now, what we're going to do here to save our time is we're going to basically pop in the sections because I've given you the code, and basically these bits are more, it's more important for me to showcase how we can achieve this as opposed to going line by line and explaining every single thing. Okay. So firstly, the badge itself, this component UI badge. If you see it in the UI folder, it's a Shadcn component. So what does that mean? We go to Shadcn, we go to our components, we go to our badge over here, and we simply can see a bunch of badges, right? We can install it and add it to our project. So now I'm going to go over here, add it to our project, and the CTA buttons. This effectively is the ones, you know, they're more custom. This is basically what I've gone ahead and built for when we have the users logged in state and so forth. So here, we're going to create a new folder called buttons and add in a CTA buttons. What I'm doing here, guys, is effectively this one I will run through exactly how it works. But effectively, let's just import this right now. And we can firstly see that we can see the hero section. Okay, so this is the first thing to notice. We can see the hero sections. That's great. The CTA buttons are these two buttons right here. So let's dive into the code. We go into the hero section. We can firstly see that we have AI powered newsletter. This is a badge. So this is effectively what we're seeing here. We have the headline, H1 tag. We have the subheading. We have the CTAs. The CTAs being these two things over here. All right. So if I go ahead and show you, these are the CTAs right here. Okay. Then of course we have this beautiful looking animation, right? This is the hero visual. So you can see effectively I've commented everything. We've got the RSS feed orb 1 and 2. We've effectively got an arrow with the animate bounce, which is allowing us to do this bounce thing. And then we've even got the desktop, which is 3 arrows to the right. So you can see right here. So I've gone ahead and just shifted it in direction based on what screen you're on. And I really like this approach, right? So we get this kind of, placeholder looking newsletter. It's a very nice way of showcasing it, right? So once that's down, we've got the body as well. So this is again, all of the separate things, top 5 tiles and so forth. So we can ignore that for now. That's just all of that. What I'm more interested in showing you is firstly, this background decoration. If we were to get rid of this, you'll see that we don't have that little grid in the background, right? So I kind of added in this nice little sweet effect here of this grid in the background. And there you can see I've gone ahead and added it in. And this is using a nice little trick here. And to be fair, let's say you didn't know how to do this, right? And you really wanted to have a background, right? I could simply come here. I can press Command-I, Command-N to create a new one. And I can say, for example, where that line of code is, I can say here. So I can copy and paste that line of code. So actually you want to just typically click the line and paste it. So it does it like so. And I can say, I want a grid background behind the hero contents. Hit enter. And as you can see now, it's going to go ahead and literally think behind it. And it's going to help us add a grid background behind it. Okay. So what we can see here, it can do it a bunch of different ways. It should be positioned in line, cover the full section, so forth. And then it can start thinking about it and it will be able to go ahead and apply the change. So in this case, it can apply a few different changes. You can see like background style and so forth. And it went ahead and got a similar effect, right? So again, there's lots of different ways to do it, right? So that's way if you want to get bigger squares and so forth. But this is kind of easy way you can go ahead and work, right? So I'm just showcasing like how you can do things. But in this case, we had already a nice solution here for smaller elements. So you can see a couple of very useful things there. We've got Ben Tech, what's up? We've got Inoke, says Papa Fam, what's good? Right. So in this case, the next step is the CTA buttons. So the CTA buttons, bear with me guys. I just want to make sure I can see all of my stuff. Right, so we've got the CTA buttons. So let's click through into CTA buttons. And as you can see, we've got this. Now this is related to clerk billing. So first up, let's go ahead and show you this. This is clerk billing. Okay, so has and user ID, right? So await auth. Now bear in mind that this is by default. You do not see me write use client. So that means every single thing inside of our app from Next.js 13 upwards is a server component by default. I believe it was Next.js 13 upwards, right? But by default is a server component. And then if you need interactivity, can you go ahead and basically change it so it's in so it's a client component. Now I'm going to change my music a little bit to make it a little bit more chill so you guys can focus and lock in a bit more. Let's go ahead and see. Why isn't it showing me my music? That's interesting. It's actually not showing any of them. I guess we can just keep it there for now, unless I'm gonna fiddle around with that. Okay, we'll do that afterwards. But basically, has. This is a very nice clerk billing component. And then basically we can go ahead and say has feature or has plan. So we need to create these plans. But what we're effectively saying here is that if any of these are true, so if this is true, or signified by the 2 pipes, this is true. So has plan star or has plan pro, this will be a Boolean, which will be true or false if the user is on a paid plan. Now, firstly, if you're signed out, we're using a clerk Next.js helper. If you're signed out, we'll render these buttons, get started, view pricing. If you're signed in, we will render go to dashboard, right? And if you're signed in, so user ID, and you don't have a paid plan, you can do it this way as well. I want to show you both ways, right? So you don't actually need the user ID check here because you already have the signed in provider higher order component wrapper. So here you can go ahead and actually say, if you're not have a paid plan, you can choose a paid plan. So firstly, let's log in right now. Right, let's log in and let's go into my personal account. And in this instance, I shouldn't have a paid plan. So let's go over here, log in, click on continue. And you can go ahead and see. Here you have it. See, choose a plan or view pricing. Okay, if we view pricing, it'll go down to the pricing section, but it does it by anchor. We haven't created a pricing section yet, so it obviously has nowhere to go. And same for this one as well. So link to go down to that section. Okay, by adding in a Next.js link tag, it pre-renders, by the way, right? So if you see this prefetch, it'll pre-render that section. So if you click there, it'll kind of throw you there and it'll already be rendered. So a couple of little helpful tips, right? So now this is really nice. If we had a paid plan, it would have said go to dashboard. Okay, so now let's create a paid plan. Well, let's actually create the other sections first, and then we can go ahead and do that, right? So the features and the how it works, both are at the surface level, literally just UI components. So if we go into landing and we pop it here, it's features. And you can see this one is using UI card. Okay, so we need to go ahead and grab UI card. So in this case, let's go down here. We can see card. A card represents this card over here. So if we go down, we can do pnpm dlx Shadcn latest add card, do Command J, install that into our terminal, and now hit save, and there you go. We have it. So we've basically got the features in a simple array here. You can feel free to offload that to a database, whatever you want to do. And then you've got the features down here where basically we can go ahead and render them out. Okay, so we've got the card, with the card header, card title, card description. So rather than rebuilding everything, we can simply go ahead and just use that approach, which makes it a lot simpler, right? Now, just with that alone, if we were to go ahead and scroll down, you can see like everything you need in to create amazing newsletters. So super clean using those cards, like we said. Okay, very, very nice. Now we've got the how it works section. Let's go ahead and implement that. How it works, similar story over here. Let's pop it here. And you can see we've got the steps. Now we've got step 1, step 2, step 3. And then I've added in a line, so a connector line here, which connects between each of the different steps. So you get this nice kind of effect, right? So effectively now, if we go over here, we do how it works. We import it in. Go down here. You can see on a mobile view, we don't see the lines. On a phone view, we do see the lines, right? So you see these lines connecting 1, 2, and 3. It's quite a nice way to explain it. Then we have a badge above, okay? So that's the how it works. We've got the signed in user button. The user button, by the way, if you can't see already, is this one right here. Okay. Now I want you to pay attention here. It's fixed to the top right. So when we're logged in, you see how it's just nicely floating at the top. You can click that and you can manage your account or you can sign out. So it's kind of a nice thing. You could add a header as well. You can make a sticky header. Lots of different approaches here. Feel free to use which one suits you. Right, and the final two are the pricing and the call to action. So first up, let's do the call to action because it's very easy. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to our components in the landing folder, add a call to action. Again, nothing fancy here. It just uses our previous call to action buttons and renders out a couple of things. If we close these off and we add in the call to action, the more interesting thing to focus on is the pricing. So pricing is a similar component. Let's go ahead and pop it in like so. And then we have the pricing cards, okay? So inside of the dashboard, for some reason I put in there, interesting, okay? So inside the dashboard, I'm gonna use these pricing cards and we're gonna run through everything in a second. So first up, pricing cards. So let's save these files and then the UI spinner here we need from Shadcn. So a spinner is typically a loader, you know, the little spinner that we see. So if we go down here to the spinner, you see that spinner right there. If you want that, we can simply install it like so. So Shadcn are pretty awesome. And again, like I said, they're built on top of, you know, Tailwind CSS. So you can go ahead and customize it very nicely. And plus you can even inspect each individual element inside a UI. So you know what's being added to your code base like so. Okay. So we go back to pricing and now we can see we've got the dashboard pricing cards. So if you can't see it, what I recommend you do is you delete that and you simply do the import. And sometimes it just takes a second for TypeScript to kick in. But let's start with the pricing cards, okay? By default, the compact size is false. So that's for our own customization. And then basically we're styling the pricing table based on it. Now, what is pricing table? And fallback, you see display spinner. So fallback is while the pricing table from Clerk loads, it will go ahead and, you know, show a spinner and then it will show this pricing table. Now, this is an awesome component. So if we go back over to our main page and we import it. So if we go down now, we should be able to see free. Okay. We see a free. That's interesting. Why is it free? So That's because we never set it up on the back end. So if we go over to our clerk database, oh no, clerk, sorry, setup, and then we go to configure.clerk. So once we're inside of our clerk dashboard, what we need to do is go down to your subscription plans. Firstly, I want you to go to free. Okay, for some reason I'm logged out. So let's go ahead and log in to make sure we're logged into the right account. And then what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and go down here and see publicly available. We're going to disable that. So we're going to get rid of that, right? Now, what I'm going to do, just so I have reference, is I'm going to show my main app. I'm going to put out the new structure there. So I'm going to go to plans over here. And then if we go down over here, we can see the main app has starter and pro. Okay. So let's create a plan and we're going to call one of them starter. Okay. The description, perfect for getting started. Okay. And then monthly fee, we're going to say is $9 a month, $9 a month. Annual discount, it becomes $7.99. So this is a very typical pattern that we see. So when you do an annual discount, it means that typically we show the annual price like this, $7.99 billed annually, or you can become $9 a month. Or what I'd typically recommend is you make the monthly a bit more higher. So this is it's a bit more like of a sale opportunity, right? Then you can also do a free trial. In this case, let's give a free trial for 7 days. Publicly available, yes. And then for features, all of these ones you see right here. So what we can do is we can go ahead and pop these in. I'm just going to keep it very simple and keep the names the same. Publicly available, yes. Let's go ahead and do that. Generate unlimited newsletters. So in this case, the same over here. So let's do that over there and over here as well. Create feature. Same with title suggestions. We can just go ahead and pop those in. And then same for subject lines. And you get the point, right? We're basically adding in the features. Now you can do that has command. Remember I showed you the await where it shows the user ID and the has. You can go ahead and actually compare against the feature key. So you see this one right here. You can say has feature full newsletter body, for example, right? So that could be, you know, or you can do based on the plan itself key. So starter, right? So starter would obviously give you all of these, but you can also go ahead and do feature based gating as well on that, right? So let's do the final one, top 5 announcements. And now if we were to click on save, because that's publicly available, you can now see, look, starter plan, build annually is available. And that's really clean, right? So that looks really, really clean. The only thing is we can't style that. So this was a bit of an issue I found. So I want to show you a custom way to override that style. Okay. Let's do the final one, which is the pro plan. So we've already done the starter plan. Let's now add in a pro plan. So in this case, let's call it pro. Notice how the pro is capital P in the name and lowercase in the key. We do for serious newsletter creators. Okay. And then here we're going to say $15 a month or $19.99. So it's $19.99 a month, or annual discount is $15 per month. Free trial, we're going to say 7-day free trial. So you just do 7 days. Publicly available, yes. And then everything here. So you can see you can actually add these in. So you can stack the features. However, I'm going to say everything in starter. Okay. So we can say everything in starter. It's another pattern that's typical as well. And then we're going to do unlimited RSS feeds. So unlimited RSS feeds. And then save newsletter history. So this is how we're effectively gating our app. We have save newsletter history, access past newsletters anytime. So let's add that one as well. So add that in, add the next feature, add newsletters, access past newsletters anytime. So the history and the settings are actually there as well. So priority support, instead of this one, what I'm going to say is I'm going to say custom user settings, right? And then what we're going to say as the description, we can say, it's fine, custom user settings, right? So that's basically going to be the name because we don't priority support. AI chat feature was just a coming soon option. So you can add, you know, for example, more things like that. So you can say coming soon, this AI chat or something like that. Okay. Now that that's done, we can close that app and let's go ahead and show you our app. So I'm going to say features, yes, publicly available, yes, and then hit save. And we should see it pop through now on our pricing card. So if we were to, yep, there you go. We can now do it, right? So can anyone explain this project use case? It's for anyone who has a newsletter we're effectively generating, we've got an AI powered SaaS application where you can provide feeds, select a date range, and it will generate a custom newsletter based on the new news that has occurred in that time period. Then you can go ahead and even take it further by saving newsletters, and you can go ahead and even add in custom things like your own settings, the user, the audience type, the name of the newsletter, and it will incorporate that into the generation of a custom newsletter. The goal here is to save newsletter creators time, and as a result, you provide value and you charge a monthly subscription for it. Oh, typical SaaS model, some micro SaaS. Okay, now as you can see, we've got our pricing costs. Now, this is awesome. Now, the only thing that we want to change here, guys, is the actual styling. So there's one element here that's not included, and that's because inside of our globals, so this actually happened, this will probably get fixed, to be fair, but there is a slight little annoying edge case where I couldn't target the exact ID, or, the exact component like I could typically the others. So go to your global CSS. This is typically where we're setting up all of our TypeScript. And I'm simply going to target exactly those components like so. I'm going to add that in. And now if we hit a refresh, we should see in a moment, you might actually have to restart your server like so, pm dev. What we should see now is that build annually. So I've just gone ahead and manually overwritten that. Okay. So now we've got our perfect starting point. Okay, that's great. So if I was to go ahead and start up to, let's say, starter, there you go, free trial, you see, and it's 12 times $7.99, which is $95, or pro, which is $180. Or if I switch it to monthly, we can see I can go ahead and get the same thing. But today it's nothing due. It'll bill us after $9, right? So clerk billing is absolutely incredible for this reason, because now in subscriptions, you can actually see all the revenue come through here, the customers and so forth, right? So really, really nice stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and sign up to starter plan, right? For this user, we're going to pay with our test card. And this is basically a quick way of doing it. And then you can see trial successfully started, continue. And now you can see our CTA buttons have the go to dashboard, which is awesome. And also these are reflected. We're on the free trial. You can switch to this button. If you click that, you can see, look, you can go ahead and see your saved payment method. So it handles all that logic for you. And even our user profile button, if you click on manage account and I go to billing, I can even see here, look, I can manage my plan. I can switch the plan. All of this is using Clerk's user profile component, or user button, better should I say, right? So in this case, the user button is actually inside of if we go to our page, you can see the user button is this button here. So user button represents this little profile button where you got this pop out, and it just works beautifully, right? Everything works really nice. It works on the phone. You can mess around with your security and your billing. Security shows you your devices. Billing shows you all your stuff, your statements, your payments, and basically you can manage your entire workflow, which is awesome. Okay. So now if we click on go to dashboard, we get a 404. So obviously we need our dashboard page active. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create our dashboard, right? So this is where we start getting into the fundamentals of the app. To create our dashboard, we're going to do a folder called dashboard. And we're going to have a page.tsx to resemble that landing page. RFC, we go ahead and pop that in, and we can say that this is the dashboard page, right? Go ahead and remove React. We don't no longer need to say that. And as you can see now, if we go to the dashboard, it's there. And because of the proxy middleware, if I tried to directly go to this, it wouldn't let me do it. So if I was signed out, and I've tried to go to the direct dashboard, it will send me to that login screen, and then it will take me to the dashboard. So we've protected it by implementing that proxy. Okay. So quick little water break. And remember, guys, if you're enjoying this build, all I ask is that you smash that like button. Okay. So let's jump back in. So we got the dashboard. Now the dashboard, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and firstly add a layout. Now in layout, you can see this is our primary layout. This is for the entire app. Okay. Over here. What I want to do is, inside of our dashboard, any route underneath our dashboard, I'm going to add a layout to that one. So layout.tsx. And this will be applied to any route underneath dashboard. And that's helpful for many reasons. So if we do RFC, we can say dashboard layout. And what we typically want to do here is we can get rid of this. We have something called the children. So we have the children. we render out the children like so. Now, what I want to do is I want to add some base styling to that. So we're going to say for the div, like so, we don't want base text, and the children is effectively the page. So any page underneath that route will be put here inside of children. So now we can say for every route, we can do something. Now, this allows us to have a really cool approach to handling things. But of course, now we're already saying if you're not authenticated, you're going to get sent to an authentication route. But what about if you're logged in, you tried to come through, but you didn't have a plan? That's going to let you through technically. So here at a server level or server render level, we have to do a catch statement. So we're going to make this an asynchronous function, which we can do because it's a server component. We're going to import auth from clerk on the server, and then next redirect comes from next navigation. So what we're saying here is, again, if the user has a paid plan, so if pro or starter, remember the key values, then we're going to say if they don't have a paid plan, redirect them to the homepage / with the pricing. Okay, so now you see I'm refreshing, I'm still getting let through. That's because this is all authenticated, it's passing. And if I go ahead and say console log has paid plan, like so, what you can see is has paid plan is true. Okay, you can see that over inside the server render. So there you go, it works. Okay, so next up, what I want to do is I want to add a dashboard header. So a dashboard header looks something like this. Let's go ahead and see the main app. I'm going to sign into the main app right now. So obviously my app is a bit buggy right now. Is this localhost 3001? Yeah. This is going to be a bit weird, but you see this header right here is a functional header. It's used for lots of different situations. I want that to be in every single route of, each page. We're always going to see this header. It's a dynamic header as well. So what I want to do is I'm going to create the dashboard header here. So dashboard header like so. Okay. So let's go ahead and create this component. And what we want to do is inside the dashboard page, we can go ahead and create that component. So that we're going to call this one the dashboard dash header.tsx. Okay. I think my music stopped, right? So I want to kind of quickly restart that because that's driving me crazy. I don't know what's going on with that. So if I go to my playlist, yeah, there we go. I've got Jay's music now. So let's see what Jay's added. There we go. Okay. And we're just going to get into a bit of a flow state because now there's quite a lot that we need to build on. So we're just going to start dialing in with it and just kind of start building out, right? So RFC, dashboard header, like so. And then what we're going to do is a bunch of imports. Now this is going to be a client component because for this client component, I do want to have interactivity. So remember I was clicking certain things, right? So a couple of imports that we're going to need, plan badge, which we will create afterwards. And then we're going to have a few things based on basically where we are, right? So I've got path name and I also have some nav items that I want to render out. So we have the path name. This will give us the path name of the route that we're in. And then say nav item. So it's got the different links at the top. So the dashboard, history, settings, account. Okay. So each one has an icon associated with it and so forth. Now, once that's done, what we're going to do is I'm going to literally replace this with the actual code itself. And then I'll explain each step. So here we have it. So we have the header syntax for SEO purposes. And anytime you see this is Biome telling you can actually rewrite this as this now. So for example, I can actually rewrite that as that instead, right? So Biome comes in clutch, says, you can change background gradient to R to background linear to R, and it's a bit cleaner. So you can go ahead and go through and make these changes if you really wanted to. But there you go, right? So right now we just called our app feed stack for now. Okay, so firstly, before we render anything out, let's go to our layout, not this one, our dashboard layout, and let's import this component like so. Okay, now of course we didn't have the plan badge. So before we can continue on, we need to create a plan badge. So let's do a plan dash badge.tsx. And then inside of here, we're going to have effectively a plan badge. Now, what is this plan badge? Effectively, all it's doing is it's using the has check, and it's basically using use auth. Now, why is it using use auth? By the way, this is going to happen because of... No, that can't happen now. I have that on my other situation. Why is that happening here? I get this problem sometimes. Yeah, I get stuck in this very weird... Oh no, this corner case. And I don't know how to get out of that one. Oh God. Okay, so I may need to, oh no, that's gonna be so frustrating. That's not good. Let me see if I can redirect that one. Oh no. Okay, let me go ahead. I need to force the state to log out right now. Damn it. All right, so this is happening because it's doing many redirects right now. So if we go here and we hit refresh, if we do, or you can see we're getting a request URL, getting a request header feels too large. So something is causing that, and I got stuck with this on my personal and I couldn't get out of it, which drove me crazy. So request headers are too large. So the clerk handshake key is over here for some reason. And I'm stuck again. No way. All right, so what I'm going to do is a couple of debugging steps, which I normally do. Storage, clear this site data, include the third-party cookies, just get rid of it all. Does that fix it for me? Or maybe if we were to get rid of it, and then before I hit refresh, redo that. See, I'm stuck again, and it drives me crazy. Oh no. Let me find if anyone else has had this issue. Clerk HTTP 431. That's a host ninja one, but let's see. So clear your cookies, short on there if you go through your code. This one is super frustrating. We'll look at our previous sites. That's fine. So that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So we're almost there. Jay actually sent me an article. Let's have a look. Let's debug this together because there's a chance that you might run into this as well. So I kind of want to fix this live and see. No. Access your cookies in the inspector tool for your local host port application. De-applicable hoodies. Okay. Chrome search. View CLI. Post. So I think the only thing I can imagine is it's linked to, yeah, cookies. So if we were to go to our cookies, let's refresh. So obviously that clerk handshake is what's causing this to happen right now. So here I can see a bunch of cookies. Okay, so I've got loads of cookies here, and that's a problem. So firstly, we need to get rid of these. So how can I get rid of these cookies? Get rid of cookies, delete cookies, clear. Okay. Get rid of these cookies before we hit a refresh. Let's get rid of that. Oh my God. Yes, we saved it. Oh, do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do that right now here as well. Oh my God, guys, you don't understand. I actually was dealing with that for a very long time and we fixed it live on stream. How cool is that? It was actually a cookie issue. So my local host cookies, let's clear it because it was trying to do a handshake. So in dev, if you ever come across that, that comes up a number of, I don't actually know why that comes up so much, but as in, it doesn't come up so much. It's an edge case for some reason. So there you go. Smash that like button because we just solved that live. That is awesome, right? Oh, I'm so happy. That was actually bothering me so much. Okay, so now what are we doing? The plan budget. Yeah, so we're back over here now. So plan badge on the header. So in this case, let's log back in. Watching live from Malawi. That's awesome. What's up? Son of Code is locked in. He's dialed in. He's been putting in a good chat this whole time. So you see, I've logged in. I've got my plan. Let's go to our dashboard. And there we have it. Okay, so I have everything inside of it so far. But obviously, I'm going to break it down. So starter. Yeah. So that's the plan badge. And how is that working? How is it telling if I'm starter or not, right? So what we're doing is we're saying React use effect. So this is basically when the component mounts or when has changes, any dependency should be included there. You can do it like this, or you can import use effect like so, right? So you can do it like that, or you can do it as individual imports. So you can do use effect and use state, right? Or you can just import React, right? It's up to you, right? I've just done it this way out of laziness, to be honest, right? But we have check plan, pro, and then we have this is pro is no. So in this case, all right, so this is probably, you know, now that I think of it, this is not the cleanest way to do it. We're just checking for pro. We're not actually checking if you're a role starter. So what we can do here is you can change it in a different way. You can say has, we can say const is pro member equals has plan pro, and then you can do is plan like so, like this, right? And then this could be a await. This could be an async. And now this is freaking out. Why exactly? Possibly undefined. This is await use auth. And this is actually okay, interesting. So I mean, you could do that, but I don't really want to do that. So there's a few things you can either use a higher order component as well to fix that. But even here, has is possibly undefined. So is loaded. Could do is loaded. This is a server. Okay, so you can do it the other way. You could do it like this. Yeah, which is not, in my opinion, is not the cleanest way. So if I was to do a console log here and just check, is pro member, is star member, let's have a look. So yeah, I had a feeling, so it's gonna freak out. Yeah. So that's not the cleanest way to do that. Right, yeah, look at that, I'm getting way too many incidents. Right, so you could do it this way. What I would recommend, to be honest with you, is what we do is, okay, so you could do the is pro route this way, or you can actually do the, there's a higher order component inside of clerk billing. So what I'll show you is clerk billing, and it's a very cool component. So if we check this complete billing documentation, this is J's playlist, yeah. So in this case, if we go to billing for B2C SaaS, we enable the billing pricing table. Yes, we can use the has features. These are all for server side helpers. You see a has method is a server side helper and a client component. So this is the client component example. You can either do by feature or by plan. So really what we could do here, to be fair, which is actually neater, is we can say if it's a pro or if it's a starter. So we can actually make this much better than the way I've done it right now. So we can say, we can protect this. So we can say, for example, we can have the protect block. We can say starter, and then we can have all of this inside of there. So we can put that over there. And then we can have the same for pro and pop that inside of there. Now, this actually does what we want perfectly. So we're surrounding the link, we're protecting, we're showing only that, only the bronze. We actually don't want a fallback, to be honest. Yeah, we don't want a fallback, so we can get rid of the fallback. We just don't want to show the component. And now these will only render if you're that or that. And because of that, we can actually get rid of a lot of this complex logic. We can get rid of all of this. And because of that, we can make this a server component, which is a lot cleaner. I mean, we may need to switch this to a client component, so we can have a check. So as you can see, that's the starter. You see, look, now it's server rendering and it's popping in. Now, if you want to make sure that it's, I mean, that's actually quite neat, to be fair. I think I prefer that flow. I actually prefer that flow. But what you can do is you could keep it all like so. And then you could say is loaded, or you can say is, yeah. So while, if it's not loaded, we can simply return a, or you could do a skeleton if you really wanted. Skeleton we haven't set up, so we could do a spinner maybe. A spinner. And now you can see, look, spinner, there you go. So while it's loading, bam. So you could make it a client component if you want to have that interactivity. That's kind of nice. We just did that live as well. It's kind of cool. Okay. So yeah, you can do it two ways really. If you want to, you know, kind of reduce the amount of overhead, you can make it a server component. But that's quite cool. So now I'll show you your project. Click on that, it takes you to the pricing page. Awesome. Okay, cool. Now, how do I get this behavior? So, you know, when I have this and it clicks through on each one, exactly, we will get through it. Awesome. All right, now that should be fine. Sorry, there we go. We'll get through that. Then here, now we've simply got navigation. So right now I'm just basically matching is active, right? So there's probably a better way we can do this. Again, if you want to check this, you can literally go and do Command I. is there a cleaner way to do this? And 100% it'll find one. So now you can see it's just saying if it's active, then it can go ahead and do it. Now you can use a switch there. You can use a different approach. You can do really a different kind of way. So starts with is a nicer approach actually. So there's a much cleaner way to do it. So is active, you can do this. Lots of item.ref, dashboard history. So this is just checking for that. So now it's mapping through it saying if you're in dashboard, or the path name has item ref and it starts with the following, then it'll do that as well. So you can do that approach, but this is a prime example of where you can refactor fairly easy, right? I'm not going to do that though. I'm going to actually dismiss that. So I'm going to undo this command. So let's go ahead and undo that. And let's also undo that. But yeah, you can make helper files if you want to make it cleaner. Again, these apps are huge and I make them really quick. So yes, naturally there are refactoring opportunities. But effectively, the is active is how I'm able to label which route we are in. Okay, so let's start with the dashboard. Okay, so going back over to the, now that we have this in play, you see this is freaking out. It's like, oh, this doesn't, it should be ordered. That's what it's saying here. So it's saying your imports are not sorted. A quick little trick with Biome is what you can do with Biome is if you do control, I've already got the command here. If you run npx biome at biome check and then -- right, what this will do is it will go ahead and it'll try to fix, you see that it found the error and it fixed it. It fixed 7 files and it found 1 error. The 1 error is in our spinner. It says the element with this row can be changed to the following elements output. Okay, so it actually went through, changed a bunch of files, and it fixed a few things like the imports, orders and stuff like that. But it done it so quick as well. So it's a very, very nice thing to be able to use. We're almost at 200 likes as well, guys. Destroy that like button. Honestly, this has been an awesome stream so far. Okay, so in this case, yeah, you can fix that one manually, whatever the case, right? But we're happy with this. So the dashboard. So let's go to our dashboard page. Okay, now this is where the magic happens in the dashboard. So what we want to do now is here, we're going to have a few elements. We're going to have a page header component, which is responsible for each of these. So let's go over to, I need to run the app again. So this will be localhost 3001 dashboard. I'm so happy I fixed that issue. This is the production one. So I'm loading that up so we can test against it. Biome is really cool. You can also add this to your edit adjacent settings, and on save, it will format it. Very nice. Yes, you can do that. He does edit code actions on save, source organization, imports Biome, explicit source fix all Biome. Oh, nice. Okay, so guys, you can see in the chat right now, he's basically popped in a if you watch the live chat, you can see in the live chat, IO Chris popped in a suggestion. Really, really awesome stuff. Thank you for sending that in. This is because of my issue. Oh, that's because, okay, yeah, that's my own issue right now. Okay, weird. Anyway, so we have the page header. So notice this component here. The page header is actually this right there. Now you'll notice we reuse that across. So inside of history, we also have history page header, settings page header, account page header, and so forth. So that's a reusable component, very simple one as well. We're going to make that right now. So page header is going to be inside of our dashboard components. It's going to be called page, you guessed it, header.tsx. Right? Thank you so much, Anacod. I appreciate you. Right? And then we have the following. So this is the page header. It takes 3 things: the icon, the title, and the description. Reusable component flow. Okay. We define what the props are. So here you can see we've got the icon, the title, the description. To use it is very easy. Right? We go back to our page, and instead of rendering this out now, we want to have something a bit more useful. We have the page header. Let's go ahead and pop that in. So we have the page header. Now, let's import the sparkles from React, and we've got the component like so. It's very easy fix there. We hit save, and just like that, we have a amazing looking dashboard. But as you can see, that doesn't look right. That's not using max width constraints. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and apply some max width constraints. So for the surrounding div, we're going to have this. And this is just going to be the background essentially, and just making sure that we're always at minimum height. And then we're going to wrap all of the elements here inside of another div, which is a container. Containers by default apply that max width constraint, in case you're wondering. It's a very nice little trick that you can have. And then you can go ahead and add padding and so forth. So that's a very nice way to do that max width constraint. and then you just add an MX Auto to center it. But if we didn't add an MX Auto, you can see it's literally effectively doing max width, but it's just like there. So MX Auto would basically shift that entire thing over to the center. Okay. So in this case, if we add the MX back or in, MX-auto, and then pow, you can see now it's centered it effectively. Okay. So we got the page header down, then we have the main content, and this includes two very important things. So underneath the page header, we have the RSS feed manager and the newsletter generator, very big features. Okay. So we have the RSS feed manager, effectively known as this right here. So this is where we add in our feeds, and we have the newsletter generator. Okay. So the RSS feed manager, let's go ahead and get that working. Okay. So up here, I forgot to show you the sign out button was really quite easy. It was just a sign out button from Next.js pre-built components, clerks components. Okay. So first up for the RSS feed manager, let's build that. So I'm going to go ahead and uncomment this out. Let's create this component. So this is going to be inside of our dashboard as well. RSS feed manager. Now this has a lot of things going on in it. Okay. So let's jump through everything bit by bit. Firstly, a bunch of imports. Okay. We don't have two actions. We need to create those two actions. We don't have the add feed dialog. We don't have a delete feed button. All of those things we need to create. Okay. The delete feed button is this one. We have, the add feed dialog. So we even have this one. So, this feed dialog, all of that we need to go ahead and create. So we define what an RSS feed looks like as number one. We got the ID, the URL, a title, description, last fetched, and the count, which is the number of articles. Okay. Now here we've got the user ID. We're checking again. We're just doing a quick check if they're pro or not. The reason why we're doing this is we're going to check the feed limit. If they're a pro, then they have infinity, right? Otherwise, and I bet you didn't know that was a thing, you can have infinity as a number, so literally no restriction. Otherwise, they have a limit of 3. Okay. Now, const user equals await upsert user from clerk. Right, and you can see we have that action. We don't actually create. We haven't got that. Now, what does upsert mean? Upsert means if they're not created, create the user. If they are created, we're simply going to go ahead and use the existing user. Right, and they also can be update the existing user and so forth. So upsert is like a quick way of saying that. So then we have the feeds as well, where we basically will go ahead and say, get RSS feeds by user ID, right? And that will basically give us back a list of RSS feeds for said user, okay? Now, bear in mind, actually, now I think about it, we may not need to actually cast this manually. This should be able to give it manually ourselves, okay? But we have the card, which we already installed before. We have card header, which is just literally rendering out manage your feed. The add feed dialog we need to create. And then we need to render out all of the feeds, which is effectively just these, right? And you can go ahead and click into these and it'll take you to the feed itself, right? Then we have a delete feed button, which is an action. So let's break it down step by step and get this working. Number one, we need an add feed button. So let's go ahead and do that. So add feed dialog, this one right here. That is the add feed button. Add feed dialog, and you can see it's literally next to the card title and description, pushed to the side. Okay. So add feed dialog is effectively like so. So we have a few things we need to install here, right? Primarily, it's a client component because it's an interactive element. We have a bunch of imports. We have a toast notification from Sona. Now you can use Sona, you can use React Shadcn, a bunch of things. In this case, if we go to Sona down here, you can see pm add Sona from Shadcn. So we're going to use that one. And then we have UI dialog, input, and label. Okay. So we need to import these from Shadcn. Shadcn, you see, it makes our life very easy. So if we click that, we already get that native outside click behavior. It really helps out with a lot of this stuff, right? And what we can do is, in this case, I need to install 3 things: input, label, and dialog. So I can do add dialog, space, input, space, label, and it will install all 3. So now it's installed all 3 of them: dialog, input, and label. And then what I can do is, you see, I hit save, and then you see we get rid of those 2. Now we still need the validate and add feed and upsert user from clerk. We have our interface here, which is our props. for when we pass into add feed dialog, which is the current feed account. Feed limit is the user pro, and a trigger, right? The trigger being like the node or the clicker, right? So effectively that is the trigger, right? So what we're doing here is we're basically checking is the user logged in, or the user ID of the user. We're getting the router, which by the way, always should be from Next Navigation. Okay. We're getting is open from React use state. And we're basically keeping track of state of that. And then we've got new feed URL and is adding. And this is all part of that dialog box that pops up. Okay. So we have a handle new feed, but that's being called here mainly. This is it, the dialog. So you can look on Shadcn's documentation. It shows you all about, we keep track of the is open state. We have it, set is open. If you go ahead and click it or close it, then we have the trigger, which is basically we pass in a button, or it's just going to render add feed, right? So in this case, that's actually an optional trigger. So even here, we don't pass in the trigger. So it's just going to show that add feed, but you can easily have a custom trigger if you want. Add RSS feed shows the RSS feed URL screen. So in this case, this one pops up. As you type in here, this will update the RSS feed here. So set new feed URL. Okay. Now, where does the submission happen? Well, the submission happens is either if you press the enter key or on the submission of the button. So in this case, we can see cancel or adding, and you see is adding. So we've actually got a piece of state tracking if it's adding or not. And then that can either be done with that, or it can be done with a use transition hook. So you can do that as you wish, right? The button for handle add feed. This is the main thing. So when you click that button, what happens? Well, firstly, if you just put a space bar and you try to hit enter, it will pop up with a toast error. Now, our toast actually isn't going to pop up. So what you need to do is go to layout first. And I missed a step. So when you add a toast notification system, by the way, is this thing here. So Sona, in case I just ran past that, is this little beautiful notification. Okay. So what I want to do is down here, I'm going to add toaster. And then I'm going to simply pop that in, import it from UI Sona. Okay. And now you can say rich colors. You can go ahead and do even things like position, top right, bottom right, and so forth. I think by default it's okay where it is. Something is bottom right by default. Okay. So now if we do toast.error, it will actually work. Okay. So then what we do is we do try set is adding true. Now again, you can do this or you can use transition hook, but in this case, keep it easy. Set adding is true. And then either way, after the try catch, we finally say set adding is false. So we use that as our loading trigger. And then we say check your feed limit. If the current feed is greater than or equal to the feed limit, you need to say you hit your limit reached, or so forth. You can do it before if you wanted. You can either have it so if you went to go add it, it would stop you. But I think it's more annoying for a user, which is kind of good because you kind of want them to upgrade. Sometimes if you let them go and find the RSS feed, try and pop it in, and then it goes and says, oh no, you can't actually do it, right? You actually can't, you need to upgrade. So you can go ahead and do that. And you can even have like a toast buttons as well, which say upgrade and take you to the pricing page. If there's no user ID, we say you're not authenticated. And then we have these two actions, which we're going to create. Right, so it's either going to result in the feed being added successfully and we reset the fields, router refresh to the server component as well. But in this case, the main thing is these two actions, right? So these are known as server actions. So we're going to go ahead and create these server actions right now. So first up, we have upsert user. So actions, we're going to create a user action. So over here, let's go into our folder structure. We're going to create at the top level. Oops, not here, sorry. Go to your go to your top level. So package.json, create a new folder at top level, call it actions. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and create a new one called user.ts. Okay. Now these actions are going to be useful for many different things. Okay. So firstly, this is our user actions. They're all around how we manipulate a user. So we're going to keep it kind of organized based on where we're manipulating in the database. So use server is a directive that we have to put in to signify to Next.js that this is a server action, right? Aloham says, how are you, Sunny? I'm doing awesome. Thank you very much for asking. So server action, this means it all happens on the server, right? So we can be using a safe, sensitive keys and so forth. We need to set these up. So we have an error handler and we have a Prisma, a singleton instance. And then we've got a couple of helpers. Now I've documented them to make it very simple for you. get user by clerk ID, we pass in the clerk user ID, and effectively ignore the wrapper for now, but we have a return await prisma.user find unique. So basically this will go ahead and run a query in our database, right? And it basically will go ahead and get the user. And then we have upsert user from clerk. Okay, so in this case, what we're doing is we're basically trying to find the existing user. If there's an existing user, we update the existing user, and otherwise we create a new user if they don't exist. Okay, so that's the second one. And now of course we need this lib prisma. So where does that exist? So we need to create a lib. So where is it? Lib. We're going to say prisma.ts. Okay. Now here we're going to have a singleton pattern. Now what does this essentially mean? Well, this means that in Next.js we have stuff like server rendering, client rendering. At a given moment in time, it is possible to accidentally have two instances of something like a Prisma client inside of our app, and we don't want that because it can cause race conditions, a bunch of issues. You always want one Prisma client. So this is actually the documentation. You can see it for yourself over here. However, what we're effectively doing is we import the Prisma client, we attach it globally, right? So what we're effectively doing is we're saying equals global as unknown as Prisma client, and then we're exporting that. So we say the global Prisma is going to be used, or we create a new one. Okay. And then if we're not in a production environment, the global Prisma is our Prisma. So this one is actually interesting. This was on the documentation. But again, if you're not confused, you can say explain this. And then you can even do an option enter to ask a question inline. The line prevents multiple client instances when development board by storing the client in the global object. There you go. Why it's only in development. In production, the code is built once and doesn't have hot module reloading. So yeah, that's where it actually happens. So when we hit save, hot module reloading is where that can happen. Whereas when we go to production, we don't necessarily need to worry about that. Okay. So that's our Prisma instance. Now we have the Prisma thing. And then we have lib database error handler. This is because there's the same error handling across many of our database calls. So what I did is I made a wrapper function to help us out with that. So it will catch any error that we can effectively use. It's a good programming practice. Do you need it? No. Can you use it? Yes. Right. And like, does it make your code neater? Yeah, it does. Right. So in lib, we have a database folder and we've got two. We've got error handler.ts and Prisma helpers. So error handler is the one that I'm showing you right now. With database error handling utility, basically we have it is Prisma error, where basically it's just going to check, is the error, which is typically unknown. If it's of type Prisma client known request error, then we're going to basically return it, cast it as that error. So you see, like, it will return it as, if it's an instance of this, it will be true or not, right? So if it's a Prisma error, then handle Prisma error as well. We're checking a couple of known Prisma errors. So P2002 means duplicate entry. This means record not found. This helps us with our debugging and then, you know, kind of informing the user, you already did that, or so forth. Handle database error. If it's a Prisma error, we throw handle Prisma error. Otherwise, we throw a new error, failed to do something. So in this case, you know, error on operation, failed to add something to the database. And then this one is my favorite, which is wrap database option. So this is where we go ahead and we kind of get a bit more advanced, but these are known as templates. So basically you can pass in any kind of data type, but whatever data type is used must be consistent with the T. So basically if we passed in a object here, this would be an object, this would be an object, and so forth. So we pass in an operation, which is a arrow function. And the second thing is we pass in an operation name. Now what's going to happen is it will either return the normal operation or try to execute the operation that you passed. Otherwise, it will catch the error and it will handle database error with the error and the operation name. And this is where we have it up here. And then it uses our is Prisma helper, throws handle Prisma error, and so forth. And it basically just finds our, if this is gone ahead and matched against any errors, it basically will handle it accordingly. It stops a bunch of extra code. So this is kind of like, you know, helping us a lot with reducing the bit of code that we need. We also have Prisma helpers. These ones are some common Prisma query patterns that we might use. Feed with the count included. We have article with the feed included. We have newsletter with the user included. So in this case, this is just if you want to do a query. We have article order by date. We have feed order by created. We have newsletter order by created, and so forth, right? So these are just like, instead of adding in created app, but descending and make it super, like, I don't know, it could be confused or whatever, your newsletter with user included. These are a bit more explicit constants, which we're going to use later on. Okay, so now that we're good with that, the user TS is basically wrapped up. We can go back now, and our upsert user from clerk is now active. We have that. Validate and add feed is the next one. Okay, so what is that doing? Well, effectively, when we click on the add feed, say for example, I pop in a value. So I just say, I don't know, feed.com/test.xml, whatever it may be. When we add the feed, it's going to try to validate and add that feed. So it takes the user's ID and the new feed URL, trim it, of course, and then it will go ahead and try to add that to our database. So we need to create that. This is basically going to manipulate the RSS fetching part of our app. So we're going to create an RSS fetch action. So in this case, RSS fetch. We have the RSS fetch. And now here, again, we get a bit necessary. Now I have abstracted things inside of this code base to effectively help you minimize things, which is why I've given you the database, the code for completely free, because it can get confusing. It can get scary. So in this case, this should help you out a lot. So just a bunch of inputs at the top. It's a server action. I want you to pay attention to this, right? We have our helper function here. Validate and add feed takes the user ID and the URL. Now, if it's valid, validate feed URL, right? So we need that kind of RSS parser, which is going to help us out. If it's not valid, it'll say, that's not a real RSS feed, or it's unable to fetch it. So we have to check if it's real first. If it is valid, we do prisma.rssfeed.create. And you see we pass in the data, user ID and URL, okay? And then what we do is we fetch and we store the initial articles. So we firstly create the feed. And then what we do is we run this fetch and store feed, where we pass in the feed ID. And basically this one, we have to go ahead and, well, we've already created down here. We basically get the feed details. If there's no feed, we say it's not found. Otherwise, we fetch and pass the feed, which we need to create, right? Up here. We get the metadata and articles. And then what we're doing is we're mapping over them. And then we're basically going ahead and putting them into a different shape. And then we're going to bulk create RSS articles, which is basically going to be where we add them to our database in the shape that we expect, right? And that's because RSS articles can come in different, like in a standardized shape. So like 95% of them are in the standardized shape. And we use a library to help determine that. And then we return a bunch of helpful functions like metadata created, skip that, and errors. And this is obviously in our wrapper function, which is helping us understand certain errors if they happen. Okay. So with that in mind now, let's create these helper functions. So lib RSS parser. What is that? That's basically how, if I give you an RSS feed link, you're able to go ahead and parse it so you can tell if it's good or not. So in this case, let's do it. So it's inside of our lib, we have an RSS folder with 3 helpers, right? Let's look at each one. We have the types. Now types, these are typically RSS types, right? So article create data is basically what we expect in the database. So we're going to basically add. We have bulk operation. This is basically all for us to basically, this is all to like handle errors and so forth. We have article data, which is the data that we extract from an RSS feed item. And then when we're preparing a feed, we have feed IDs that we're going to use inside of generating a newsletter, start date and end date. For example, if I want the dates from, if I want the information from the last week, start date will be, from last 7 days, end date would be today. And then the feed IDs would be each of the feeds in which I've selected to go ahead and scrape from. So for example, it'll be the date range, so start date, end range, there's certain feed IDs generate newsletter. Okay. So that's what's happening here. Now we go back, let's create RSS feed article, right? So that's an action. So RSS feed article or RSS article is basically our manipulation of the RSS articles itself. So lots of imports. We've already got all of these helpers. So I've really gone into a depth here of explaining every single function. So first one, create RSS article, creates a single RSS card with automatic deduplication using the GUID. If the article already exists, it adds the current feed ID to source feed IDs for multi-source tracking. So primary example, if there's 2 articles that have been repeated across different newsletters, it won't create the 2 articles twice. It will just it'll create it once, and then source feed ID will basically be referencing the one that's already created. Okay. And then use MongoDB's add to set to prevent duplicate feed IDs in the source feed arrays. Add to set. If you don't know what a set is, it basically is a data type where you can go ahead and add like numbers into it. But if there's a duplicate number or duplicate value, it will not allow you to enter it. Okay, so firstly, we try and find the existing article. If there's an existing one, then we update it only if the feed ID doesn't already include it in the source feed IDs, right? Otherwise, we return the existing article if the feed ID was already present. And if it doesn't exist at all, we create a new one, right? We basically create a new feed, okay? And then we've got, and obviously we're passing in the data, which is about all of the data needed to build that thing, that article. Then we've got the bulk create RSS articles. This one is handy because it basically allows us to run it in parallel. So in this case, you've got 4. You could do a, instead of doing a 4, this is 1 by 1. You can actually change this to be a promise.all. The issue is that if something didn't work, you'd have to roll back. So you could implement transactions here to a degree and do it that way, right? And then we basically, this is just a bulk operator to help us out. Get articles by feed and date range. This is useful for later on when we need to go ahead and get the articles for when you log into the dashboard. And then you see add source count for reference. And that's the RSS article helper. That's the actions, right? So over here, we have the actions, and then we have the RSS feed, which is the final one. So RSS feed server actions go in here. Now here, again, RSS feed actions. All we're doing here is get RSS feed by user ID, pretty self-explanatory. We use them nice little constants that we defined earlier. Remember the ones I talked about? Keeps everything very neat as well. And we have the update feed last fetched, which is very important. Permanently deleting an RSS feed and clean up articles not referenced by other feeds. So basically this one right here is basically a custom command. That's effectively, right? So it allows us to run things customly. So we can say query, basically querying for source feed IDs. We'll check in to see if we deleted an RSS feed, can we delete the articles or are they referenced by another RSS feed? And if so, don't delete those ones, okay? So that's effectively what happens here. And then we have deleting articles that no longer have feed references and then delete the feed itself. So effectively, we have to go through that approach to safely delete. Once that's done, we have everything inside, right? So now we have our RSS fetch, which means we have all of the things that we need to add in an RSS feed. So with that in mind, if we go back to our page inside of our dashboard and we pull in our RSS feed manager, we should be able to see, okay, we forgot about the delete button. So, oh yeah, we've only done the add feed dialog. Yeah, so the add feed dialog is now done, but there was many more components to it. There was the delete feed button. So this one right here. So let's create that. That's effectively the delete button. So what happens when we click this? You know, once it pops up, what do we do, right? Like how do we handle that? So here, let's go ahead and do that. So delete feed button. Right now, if we click it, it takes us to this delete feed button. We need to create that component. So delete feed button.tsx. Now the delete feed button is the following. So it's a client component, it's interactive, standard imports. It takes two things, a feed ID and a feed title. We have the use router from always next navigation. We handle delete on a button click. So simply a button, a Shadcn button with a ghost variant, size of an icon. On click, it handles delete. We have some styling behind it and a trash icon. And then when we handle delete, we basically say this if not confirmed. So basically, this is that pop-up that you saw. So if we click no, it wouldn't continue, so it'll return. Otherwise, it will try to delete the RSS feed. If the toast was successfully deleted, it will pop up and say that. And then we have router.refresh, which refreshes that server component, right? Then we have the toast error if it didn't go well. So delete RSS feed is actually from our RSS feed server actions file that we just went ahead and implemented before. And this is that deletion. Remember where it goes in and it tries to see if it's not referenced so it can safely delete that article. Otherwise, it will delete the feed itself after it does that, right? So with that done, we now have that. So we have the add feed dialog and the delete feed button. And we also have these. So we've done these ones. So we just need to sometimes, do that. And then can't resolve RSS parser. Yep. So I forgot to mention the RSS parser. So remember, I actually only showed you a little bit of that. So we had more things to focus on. I just showed you the types, my bad. We have the feed refresh. This one is very interesting, actually. So this is all about that caching system that I talked about. So the caching system was effectively cache window. This is 3 hours. So why 3 hours? This balances fresh content for the users, reduced load on RSS feed servers, and better performance. Now, these are things which you need to think about at a high level. If every single user on your platform from the same URL, which is your website, tried to go and scrape, right? So your server was trying to go in and scrape in an RSS feed, you will get rate limited at one point or another. that server is not going to let you keep on doing that over and over again. Especially if you had, let's say you had 1 million users tomorrow, that's not going to work. And plus, it's not a good practice because now we're at the patience of that server. And if that server slows down because we have 1 million people accessing it, it's not great. So what we want to do is we want to cache it for 3 hours, right? So effectively cache it for 3 hours, and even this maximum number of articles. In this case, we're saying just fetch up to 100 articles because it's quite a lot of context for an AI prompt, right? Get feeds to refresh. This takes all of the feed IDs. Basically what this is doing is it's determining when we go ahead and basically try to generate a newsletter. Say for example, this one had been called 3 hours ago within the 3 hour window, this one within the 3 hour, this one within the 3 hour. Say this one was called 6 hours ago. So that's not fresh data. What this function will do is it works out the cache threshold. So is it within the cache window? And then what it does is it will find only those ones, right? Now, what it will do is it will basically have, let's say, 1 feed to refresh because the rest are absolutely fine. We have a set to make sure that we don't, go ahead and have a duplication. And then what we do is we go ahead and we do a fetch. So this is effectively what we're doing. We're saying recent fetches. Basically, these ones will be the ones which were already good. Build a set that were recently fetched. These are the ones that don't need fetching. And then we have a feed to refresh. These are the ones that need refreshing, right? So, and then we return the feeds to refresh. So this will give us back all of the IDs. So we're mapping down into an ID string, a string of IDs. And that will be all of the feeds that need refreshing. So literally in this case, if they had all been done within 3 hours except this, that would return 1 item in the array with just that feed ID. So that way it knows that, okay, I just need to refresh that one, right? And same for this one, preferred feeds and articles. You can read it for yourself. Checks which feeds are stale, refreshes stale feeds by fetching new articles, retrieves articles from the database for the date range. This is the main one, right? And the params is basically what we pass into it. So if you click on this, you can see feed ID, start date and end date. So this is the whole magic behind it all. So what we're doing here is we basically get the feeds to refresh, like I showed you before. This will give us a list of the IDs which need refreshing. If it's greater than 0, we're going to log it out saying refreshing the stale feeds. Then what we do is in parallel, we want to go ahead and start refreshing all of them. So promise.allSettled means that only if all of these were settled would this be resolved. Otherwise it would throw error. Okay. Then we've got successful, which we can count like so. We've got failed numbers, and then it will log out saying this, all of them failed, all of them succeeded, 1 of them failed, for example, right? Else it'll say all the feeds are fresh, skipping the refresh mechanism. So that's our caching mechanism, our custom caching mechanism. Down here, we've got the fetching articles from the database within the specified date range. This is the one where basically we pass in the feed IDs, we pass in the start date, end date, and the article limit. And then this will effectively go and give us the articles with the importance scoring. So in this case, let me go and do importance scoring basically because the source count means how many times have you seen it in another article, right? So it's kind of an extra thing we added on. But what that's going to do is going to fetch the articles from the database, and then it will basically ensure we have articles to work with to make sure we've got some articles, and then it will return the articles. Okay. So with that in mind now, we should be good to go. Oh, RSS Parser, the final one. Yeah, I forgot to show you. It's the actual parser itself. So we're using this library called RSS Parser, right? So npm I RSS Parser. And that's because it's a very popular library, and it's going to allow us to basically have a standardized approach to understanding what does an RSS feed look like in a maintained way, right? So basically this is a bunch of utility classes that have helped us create, right? So you can go ahead and look this yourself. There's a combination of myself and AI effectively. Normalizing the categories, this would just make sure that, if we did have, so what this is actually doing is sometimes RSS feeds have categories in like, how we have main with the crocodile brackets, and then we have the content. Sometimes they have category, let's just say it was software, and then it'll close brackets, right? And sometimes it's actually inside of the metadata. So what we want to do is we want to normalize it. So that way, if it's from the approach with the crocodile brackets, cool. If it's from the approach from the metadata, cool. But we're making sure that before we process any of this category stuff, it's all going to come back to us in the same format. So it handles both string categories and XML parse category objects, right? So in this case, you can see that this is basically where the text content is in a property. This is in the simple string category and so forth. So we're basically making sure that that's the case. We have a 10-second timeout when we are passing it to make sure that, you know, if it's longer than 10 seconds, it failed. We have a validator if the URL returns a valid feed, and you see we're just using pass URL. If that gets past this, then it's cool, right? Otherwise, it's an invalid feed. We've got pass feed URL as well, doing the same thing, and we have extract feed metadata. So obviously we have as any here only because we can't predict exactly what will come back from a metadata from RSS feed because there's no true standard. We just know that these fields would be there. So these fields at the minimum, title, description, link, image, URL, and language will be there based on the RSS library that we're using. We have extract articles, which effectively maps through, is able to go ahead and check if there's a GUID, otherwise it will use the link, otherwise it will create our own identifier for it. And then we have the publish date, and then we have extract contents, where we're basically going through each of the various different comment RSS fields. So you can see that like we have to understand that RSS feeds aren't always going to be consistent, right? Then we have extraction of the summary. So it could be in content snippet, it could be in description, it could be in summary, right? So again, you can really kind of nail this down. If you find that you're trying to scrape RSS feeds and it's not scraping it, what I'd do is I'd look at the RSS feed, I'd copy and paste the entire thing, and I would literally throw it into my extract articles, and I'd be like, let's implement, I'll speak to AI and I'll be like, let's implement this, so that way we also catch these fields. Or I'd check the library and see if I can do it a better way, and so forth, right? Normalizing the categories, image URL, and so forth. So basically what we're doing here is we're extracting information from each of the articles, we're passing it, and then we're giving it back in a consistent format, okay? And same here, fetch and pass feed. So here what we're doing is we pass the feed URL, we extract the feed metadata, we get the articles, and we return all three, right? We return the metadata, the articles themselves, and the item count. So that's all the kind of tough stuff, really. The rest is fairly easy now. All right, so if we click on add feed, you see that one's there, or we've got the trigger there. So let's go ahead and give it a feed. So an example feed that I like is this Next.js medium feed. So if I was to grab this one, let's go ahead and copy the feed URL and let's paste it in. You can see typically it doesn't always have to be .xml, but that one right there. Okay. So as we add that in, what that's doing behind the scenes is that feed added successfully 10 articles imported. Now, if we look inside, I want you to pay attention to here. You can see that was old. Okay, so it didn't actually, it didn't show us the statements, but it might have shown it inside of the console here. No, this is my own thing. These are from before. No, okay, it's fine anyway. But we got 10 articles. So how can I prove that we have 10 articles? Well, remember, we can do it a few ways. We can either use the Prisma Studio to look at it. Let's do that. Or we can use the extension over here, MongoDB. Right, so in this case, we can do RSS articles. If we hit a refresh, documents 10, you can see that I've got all these articles. And this is cool now, guys, because look, we got the ID, the feed ID, the GUI ID, the source feed ID, title, look, issue number 32, Next and React weekly newsletter, and we have all the content. And this is the golden magic. This is the golden context that will feed our AI model that will basically go ahead and tell it, okay, this is what's happened in the last week, right? And then we also have the dates as well. So created that and so forth. And that's going to be used for the date range checking. Okay. Destroy that like button if you're learning something right now, because these don't take quick to build. As you can see, these are huge apps, right? So we added one, and you can see 1 out of 3. Let's add another one. Go ahead and do another one. Let's do, for example, JavaScript weekly. I'm going to add that one in myself. Pop that in, add feed, have a quick water break while it does that. You can see that got 4 articles. Nice. Okay. And let's do one more so we can check if our gating works. Going to do add feed, and let's do React Native blog. So pop it in like so. Again, as you can see, all of this is powered by MongoDB. So all of this is working through MongoDB, and as you can see, perfect. Like 3 of 3 used. Now, if I was to try and add another one, firstly, we don't allow duplicates, but before even that, it says limited to 3 feeds, upgrade to pro if you want to do any more. Okay. So with that in mind, now we've got our RSS feeds. That's great. Now what we need is our essentially, and by the way, if you want to check if it's truly linked, what we can do is we go over here, we type in Prisma Studio, pop that open. Our Prisma Studio will now open. And then what we can do is we can go into the user table. We can see inside the user table, look, we have RSS feeds and newsletters. So you can see there's true structure. So we've got 3 RSS feeds. We can click into it and you can see. So next time you think it's not relational, guys, that is fully relational. 10 RSS articles in that one, 4 in that one, 20 over there. We click into the RSS articles here. I can actually go ahead and, oh, it's linking to 10, I guess. Yeah. So you can expand on that if you want in a different way, or query it accordingly and so forth. So we open that in a new tab and then we go over here, 10 articles. There you go. Now we can see that these are the 10 that were pulled from that exact feed and so forth, right? So really, really nice stuff. Okay. So that's looking pretty nice and awesome. So that way, if you want to look in a visual way, you can use Prisma Studio. So that's cool. Now what we want to do is let's go ahead and create the actual generation aspect. Okay. So generating a newsletter. So if we go over to our page.tsx, we've got the newsletter generator. That's the right-hand side. All right. So over here, we need to create a newsletter generator. So this one is going to be for newsletter generator. This one is as such. So inside of our dashboard, we have a new component, newsletter generator, so newsletter generator.tsx. Okay. Now this one is like so. So we have the following imports. We have the user's ID. We have the user themselves. We have the feeds. We check if the feed length is 0. We say generate add RSS feeds first. So you obviously need to do that. By the way, I forgot to show you something. I will do it after. The deletion works. Okay. The main thing that we don't have is a newsletter form, which is this form right here. This is where all the magic effectively happens, right? We have the feeds. We pass in. We're basically mapping firstly the feeds to the correct state. So ID, title, URL. So this expects effectively feeds in this shape. So a feeds array in that shape. So just mapping before. You can do that anyway up here or whatever you want. All right. So now let's create the newsletter form. Okay. So the newsletter form is going to be like so. So this is a newsletter form, and this has a few things that we need to import: a checkbox, text area, and a date range picker. Okay. So let's go into, let's do it. So it's a text area. Well, so firstly, checkbox, text area, and then let's import those two. So that's from Shadcn. Right. And then we already have those now. So, and then date range picker is a custom component that we're using that we built basically, but built off of something on Shadcn. Now, firstly, the newsletter form. Effectively, we have a date range, a user input, and selected feeds. Okay. When we mount, we're basically setting the feeds to the ones that are passed through here. Okay. Now, all selected is basically, this is effectively these right here are just allowing us to have this functionality, select all, unselect all. Okay. Handle toggle feed basically is if you're clicking this and so forth. This is just handle toggle feed. Okay. Handle generate is when we click the button to generate. So this is the main magic there. And then we obviously have the UI. So we have the card, the header, the content itself, the date range picker firstly, which is this one. It's a custom date range with a side of presets. And then we have the feeds themselves. So select all, deselect all, like I showed you above. We have the checkboxes, right? And then we have the label, the text area, and the handle generate. Okay. Text area obviously here is the instructions. So these are custom instructions on top of everything else. Okay. So firstly, let's create the date range picker to help us out. So date range picker is actually going to be, it's quite a big component to be fair, date range picker. And this has a lot of things inside of it. So firstly, date FNs, React Day Picker, UI calendar, pop over. This one is better. You just go straight to the calendar over here. Where is it? Yeah, date picker, this one. And you can see already it gives us this. So we need that. So you can see database composition of popover and calendar components. So we actually need to install both separately. So popover and calendar. So let's do the calendar first. So we can do calendar and space popover. Yeah, them two. And that should, or the calendar should also add in date FNS for us. I believe React Day Picker as well. Button already exists, which actually, no, we don't need to override the button. Okay, so now you can see that the calendar also installed React Day Picker and a few other things. So that includes all of our dependencies for a calendar picker. We have an interface, which is date ranges, which is easiest from and to. We have date range picker, which is value, on change, and class name. This is what we pass through here. The reason why is because from the parent, we want to control. So here, effectively, where is it here? We want to control some state from the level above. So at this level, we're trying to modify this state. Now, do I recommend that you do that? Okay, here's my rule of thumb. If you prop draw state, which means you pass state down to a child component, one level is the maximum. Okay, one level in a situation like this, it's fine because it's overkill to add a stand or a state management technique. However, if you're going 2 levels down or any more than that, 100% move it to global state. Otherwise, it's just a messy code base and you should not be doing that. That's my take on it. Okay, heading back in. So now we've got the date range picker. We've got the date, which is React's use state, and we're basically mapping it to this React day range. So this one right here, if you click into it, it's just from and to. And then we have handle date changed, right? So we're just checking if you basically if you select dates. So if you selected a to and from, then we'll select those dates. We got the presets. So presets are effectively going to be, you know, if it's 7 days, we have a to and from, and we basically just change the date, and when we manually will do it. So that's what a preset effectively is doing. We have the popover, and then this is where we customized it. So what we have here is we pick date range, and in the content area, we have 2 childs. So in this case, you see a flex there. The first container is the presets. The second container is the calendar. So the first one is the presets with the button last 7 days, set preset 7, set preset 14, set preset 30, set preset 90. It's very easy, right? A number of months that we show is 2, because typically when you have a range, you want to show 2 months. Okay, initial focus, I guess, is, oh, we don't need it, right? So now with the date range picker done, what we can do firstly is go back to our newsletter generator. Let's import that. Okay, go over here, and as you can see, newsletter form, we do have that, so we can go ahead and get rid of that issue. We have the newsletter form that gets rendered out, and then what's actually happening is the generate newsletter is where the magic happens. So we already have things working, so you can see that I'm already pulling these through. If I was to go ahead and get rid of the Next.js medium one, for example, or let's just add one in that I'm not going to care about too much. So that's 50 articles. I mean, that's quite a lot of articles, to be fair. But anyway, let's do it. So this one's a big one, so it might take a little longer. So we can go ahead and do that. Add feed, adding, you know, it says, oh, I'm on the lower plan. So I'll show you right now if the gating does work. Okay. But we, you know, actually, no, I'm going to keep it on the start because we need to demo a few things. But you can see that the 7 days works. Go ahead. You can go ahead and click through each one, deselect and select all as well, and you can add in something. And when we click generate newsletter, that's where we want to jump into now. So generation is handle generate. So what we're doing here is we say, firstly, you need to have the date range, you need to have at least one RSS feed, and then we are passing the URL search param. So what we're doing is we're creating a new URL search param. What does this mean? It means we're basically saying that it's looking something like this. It'll be, yeah, like this: dashboard, generate, and then all of the things will be attached afterwards. It'll say feed IDs. It'll be a long string that gets generated effectively. Start date, end date, feed IDs. All of it gets passed through on the generate string. And then on that page, we handle generation. Okay. So effectively, now if I was to do this here in our app right here, so we can handle it. We do, for example, hello world, context, generate. Now we get a 404 because you see this. It's generate feed IDs. It's got all of the user input. It's got the start date and end date. Everything gets passed through the URL. So this is following, like, you know, the query parameter. And this means that we don't actually have to overkill here with like global state. Okay. We offload it to just the query param. Okay. And we use new URL search params to make sure that it's formatted correctly. Okay. So next up, what we now need to do is we want to go ahead and do the / generate. So that's where the generation page is. So dashboard / generate. Okay. So inside of the dashboard now is where we need to handle the more complex thing, where it's actually generating the entire thing. So here we're going to have a page.tsx, page.tsx, RFC. And this is going to be the generation page. Okay, like so. Now, at this point, you can see we get to the generation page. Firstly, there's lots of things that we have to factor in here. How do I, well, firstly, here I'm actually rendering our newsletter generation page child client component. So I don't know if this was the point of this. I don't know why we did this, but effectively, we are doing this. We're returning newsletter generation page, and this is a server component, technically rendering a client component. But newsletter generation page is a component here. So the generation page is just going to effectively do it here. We can, I think the reason why I did this is because you could do a server component grab of the query params and pass them through. And you can do a bunch of stuff here. And then basically you don't have to go ahead and do client calls there. So I think that's one of the reasons why I did it. But yeah, it's fine. Okay, so anyway, let's create this component. So newsletter generation page. Now, so let's go ahead and do this. Hey, Sunny, would it not be a good idea to use Nux for search param state? 100% you could use that. Yeah. Remember, guys, this is one way of building something. You can use a million different libraries, a million different things, but absolutely, yes. Very good point. I'm glad you're locked into that level. Right. So in this case, now let's do inside of the dashboard, we have the newsletter generation page. So newsletter generation page.tsx. Right. This is a big file, so brace yourself. Okay. So here we have newsletter generation. Now, as you can see, this is where we use Vercel AI SDK. We have streaming going on. We have, you know, a bunch of things poured in here. We have Zod, which is awesome, right? So Zod is allowing us to effectively enforce type checking, right? And then we have here, we have actions, generate newsletter. Then we have button, then we have a bunch of component stuff, and then we have newsletter display and a newsletter loading card. All right. So firstly, we need to install a bunch of stuff. So this is where we should probably stop, go to Vercel AI SDK. And this is the AI SDK by Vercel. It's very good because it helps, oh my neck. It helps us do a bunch of stuff very easily with AI models. Okay. So in this case, we can do getting started, Next.js app router, and you can see here, creating an application we've already done, cd into the application. Here we have it. Import, install AI SDK React, AI SDK OpenAI. So these are the ones we're going to import that into our app. So firstly, a bunch of dependencies that we need. Let's go ahead and import those. While it's happening, configure OpenAI API key. Okay. So I need to go ahead and do that. So .env. And I believe this might be the last environment key that I have. Yeah, it is. So we're good there. So effectively, what we're going to have is an OpenAI key. OpenAI, I guess, yeah, OpenAI key. And this value is the one that it searches for the library. So what you need to do, go to platform, go openai.com. You need to log in. I believe it might be easier if I just go here, platform into my other account. Okay, apparently I'm logged out of both. So let's log into my personal account and let's create a new developer token. And then what I'm going to do is I'm effectively going to paste it in here and I'm going to save and close that file. So go to settings at the top, we go to API keys and we go to create new secret key. And then in here, I'm going to call it AI Newsletter SaaS for YouTube. I'm going to click on create secret key and I'm going to hide my key now. So what's happening now is it pops up in, I can show you that bit. It pops up like so. We're going to copy this and then I'm going to go over here to the side. So I'm going to click done. I'm going to go over here to the side. I'm going to paste it, close this file, paste it, save and close this file. So I'm pasting it, I'm saving and I'm closing this file. And as the last time we need to see the environment, there you go, right? So we have that down, going back over. Now we've got the AI key done. And then you can see this is then when they go ahead and show you how to do like UI, wiring up. The rest of this is purely custom. I'm using like experimental, use object and a bunch of other stuff. So this is where we take lead. So what we're now doing is Zod effectively. If you want to know what Zod is, I always kind of forget a nice explanation of this, but Zod is a TypeScript first validation library. So effectively it's used to define schemas where you can validate data. So imagine we pass in an object and we say, okay, does this match this schema? Yes or no? Zod is great for that. And the good thing about this is AI models are effectively using it. So at Vercel AI SDK, we pass in, instead of passing in a loose object shape, we can pass in a Zod schema, and then we can reuse our Zod schema in several places. Okay, so here we have the newsletter schema, which is a object with suggested titles, some subject lines, body, top announcements, and additional info. This is basically the screen that we're building, right? So I'm going to show you quick generation. So if I was just to go ahead and say generate newsletter now, this is effectively what we're going to see. So see right now, it's generating the newsletter. We're going to refresh feeds where we need to be and analyze feeds where we need to. And now it's basically going ahead, and this is where in the terminal I can see it's now saying stale feeds. So that's why it's refreshing 2 non-cache feeds. And this is the structure that we have. Whoa, what's up? Firstly, we have Abo. What's up? OG in the house. Good to see you. And we have Del4 Nath. Welcome to the Papa Fam special tier. So I appreciate that so much. He's now a supporter of the channel. As you can see here, newsletter schema. So that is effectively the schema for this shape. So newsletter title, subject lines, net body, announcements, and additional information. Okay. So we have the type, which is our TypeScript type, and we're inferring it from this Zod object. So this gives us now a TypeScript check that we can run against. Okay. Now we have the newsletter generation page. This component handles the full newsletter generation flow, reads generation parameters from the URL, prepares metadata and shows task notifications, auto starts generation using AI's use object hook, displays the streaming newsletter, allows saving for pro users. Okay, so a bunch of stuff here. Use search params allows us to get those params from the query, from the URL, right? Has started reference. We're going to use that as a reference to check something soon. And we have number of articles. Then we have the search params themselves. So we have, the feed ID, start date, end date, user input. We're basically passing that. So we're going to have our params wrapped up. And then we say if none of these were basically passed in, then what we're effectively going to do is if feed ID and start date and end date, params, we basically are wrapping it into our params object. Else we basically nullify the params. That's probably not the best thing we should do. We should probably have an error be thrown here saying you need to give valid things into it. But this is the really interesting part. So object submit is loading after using the use object hook. Now, yes, the use object hook is an experimental feature from Vercel's AI's SDK, right? What it does is very cool, however. So if we type in Vercel AI SDK, oops. Okay, that was frustrating. Invalidate key. To use Vercel AI SDK. So, and then use object. So here we have it. So I need to invalidate API KJ. Okay, now experimental use object. So here we have it. So allows you to consume text streams that represent a JSON object and pass them to a complete object based on a schema. You can use it together with Scream object on the backend. So why is this helpful? Because it allows us to we don't have to add in custom server sent events. I've done it in a build before, and I actually had it in this build, and then I found this, which made it way easier. So use object allows us to basically handle the streaming of data from the backend, keep things relatively simple. Okay. So what we do is we pass in the API endpoint. We'll generate this API endpoint. We have type assertion. Now, what is this? It's basically saying that the newsletter is going to be an object which is partial, which means that as it's being streamed in, it will be a partial object. So it's being streamed in, of course, right? Which means it's not going to be a complete object at first. Auto start generation with pre-flight metadata checks. So as soon as the component mounts, we basically are going to check for, if we don't have params, we don't do anything. We have started reference is current true. So this is where we're effectively using it. So we use the has started reference to prevent us from doing a double check. So basically we set it to true the first time it runs, and then we basically use that as a singleton pattern so it doesn't run the second time. Then we say const start generation. We try and we fetch the prepare endpoint. We basically pass in the params that we prepared earlier. And then this will give us back some information. So it'll give us back the number of feeds to refresh. So we can basically say a toast notification of saying, well, okay, you need 3 notifications that need to be refreshed. And we're going to analyze off of 5, right? So it basically goes and does that. If the response comes back, okay, we show those toast notifications. And then we submit, which is basically our our submit is basically, remember, it comes from the user object. So submits are the start of our AI streaming part. Let's keep it like that, simple, right? So basically we submit the params up. Now show success when the generation completes. So this is basically just allowing us to have that is loading comes from. So lots of stuff here. Yeah, it comes from there. So while it's submitting and it says loading, then of course we can basically render all of our UI off of that is loading state, as well as, you know, we're basically keeping an eye on this, saying whenever is loading changes, as well as this stuff, once it's done loading, so it's not loading and the newsletter body is there and articles are present, then we can say newsletter generated from 10 articles, for example. Same thing for navigation. If someone wants to try and leave the page while it's generating, we should probably stop them. So we have a before unload event listener, which basically says, it basically stops you from accidentally going away from the screen. And then we have the handle save. This is for pro users. So once it's been generated, we have this action save generated newsletter, which takes a bunch of input and it will just save it to the database. So that's actually quite simple. We'll do that afterwards. We obviously need to create those actions, right? So then we have, more importantly, after the handle save, we have what happens afterwards. So we've done handle save, handle back to dashboard, very simple, it's just a route or push. But if there's no params, we show an error. Say, you can't be here, go back to the dashboard, right? You need the params. Otherwise, we render out the UI. So this is the main UI that you saw here, the newsletter generation, this entire flow over here. Okay, so this is effectively what we're doing. So before we carry on, I am going to invalidate my key right now because I have a bad feeling about that. So I'm going to invalidate this key. I'm going to create a new one. So Jay, we're good. So because I know what I'm like, I'm going to forget AI Newsletter YouTube SaaS. Okay, and I'm going to get a new key and I'm going to replace my one so that way we don't have that issue. Okay, so I'm doing it now. I'm just replacing that key. All right, so Jay, I have successfully invalidated the key. Cool. So we have the button here. So handle back to dashboard, which is all here. And then we have newsletter generation at the top. And then we have is loading, generating newsletter, which was basically while it was generating, it was showing here generating newsletter. And then we have the body, right? The body is this part. So show loading card while generating. So newsletter loading card, right? So we need to create that. And then once it's done loading, we effectively, or, you know, once there is a newsletter body, we pass in the newsletter display. Now this part is the cool part because this is a partial, right? So basically this is going to be generated slowly. And we also have, if generation hasn't started yet, it'll basically say preparing to generate, setting up the newsletter generation. So now that we have this, we need a couple of elements. We need firstly the front end elements. We also need the back end API routes, like the prepare, the stream one, you know, the one that actually went ahead and started the stream, which is this one here, generate stream. And we need actions. So firstly, I think let's start with the actions because it makes sense. What are we going to be doing here? So effectively the actions that we need to generate are generate newsletter actions. So going over to actions right now, generate newsletter looks something like this. So we have a few helpers that we're going to need. We need our, you know, get current user, check its pro user. We have prompt builder, we have newsletter, create newsletter, and we have user settings. So lots of additional stuff that we're going to need. But effectively, what are we doing here? Well, we have a newsletter schema. And to be honest with you, I should be exporting this and using this in the front end as well, else we're defeating the purpose. So you should probably be doing this. And then inside of newsletter generation page, we should be actually importing it from our backend. Yep, that is exactly what we should be doing. I don't know why I didn't do that. Sorry, guys. Now we have Z object. Yep, now we have generated newsletter. Cool. Same with the type, actually, even this. So even that is newsletter generation page. So where we have a type, it's okay. I mean, no, it's fine for that one as a partial. Okay, but anyway, generate newsletter with AI streaming. This is the main function for newsletter generation. This is probably the biggest part of the app right now. It authenticates the user. It fetches the user settings for customization. It prepares the feed and retrieves the articles. It builds an AI prompt with all of the context, and then it streams the AI generated newsletter in real time to the front end. Okay, so let's go for it. So generate newsletter stream. takes feed IDs of the feeds that we need to go ahead and use, start date, end date, and the user's input. Effectively, you know, when we're in the home page or the dashboard, that's where it's doing it. So step 1, we get the current user. This is a helper function. Step 2, we get the user settings. Step 3, we get the articles, right? This one we've already done. Step 4, we go ahead and get the article summaries. And what is the article summary? Well, that one is interesting. That one's actually going to be a helper function where it's going to summarize effectively, right? Or just get the summaries internally of each article. Then what we do is we have a prompt. The prompt is going to be what effectively we pass over to our AI model. So in this build newsletter prompt, we're going to pass a start date, end date, article summaries, article count, user input, and the settings. And then inside of here, we have a big prompt, which will basically go ahead and aggregate everything together. And then once we have our prompt, what we do is you can swap out the models here, by the way. We're using GPT-4o, but you can feel free to use whatever you want, a heavier model, a lighter model, and so forth. You can even go ahead and add in tooling if you really want to. I don't think for stream object actually, but still, yeah. You pass in your schema and you pass in your prompt, okay? And then what you do is you return the stream itself, which is a partial object stream. And you see now we're using stream object. And then we pass in articles analyzed. And because we are using the newsletter schema consistently between the back and the front end, we can be safely assured that as it streams through, we are knowing what is being brought in. Okay, so we know what the object looks like. Okay, so it's very, very important. So now, next up, we have save generated newsletter. This one is for the pro users. So effectively here, we have all the information. We check if the user's a pro user. If they're not a pro, we said, pro plan is required. Otherwise, we get the authenticated user. We save the newsletter. So create newsletter for them. Okay, create newsletter. I think we have. No, we don't. Okay, so I need to do a bunch of stuff right now. So I need to firstly create the newsletter helper. So for saving a newsletter for a pro user, so let's do that. This one is fairly straightforward. We have the newsletter action, create a newsletter, takes all of that information, we wrap it with our helper function, and we simply create a newsletter. Okay. And then this one, get newsletters by user ID, takes a user ID options. Now this is kind of cool because you can paginate. So if you passed in limit, you can limit the number of options, and you can also skip. So you can say skip the first 10, give me the second page, and so forth. And again, that's what that's doing here. And then we've got the get newsletter by ID as well. So this is a single newsletter by ID, and this is going to be used for the history effectively. So when we go ahead and click on the history, then it can do it. And also we make sure that the newsletter's user ID is the person who is logged in. So you don't want to be able to see someone else's, generated article for whatever reason. Maybe your competitors want to try and access your stuff. Then we have get newsletter count by user ID. And then we have delete newsletter, which is effectively just where we go ahead and we effectively delete the newsletter like so. And yeah, that's the newsletter actions. So that one is now done. Then we have user settings. But before we do that, let's do the helper functions. So lib auth helpers. So heading over to lib auth helpers. So it's inside of lib auth. Okay, so lib auth helpers.ts. Okay. So we have two helpers, I believe, in there. We have check is pro user. Very simple, guys. All it's doing is checking if the user's a pro, if they have the pro plan, right? So we're waiting for it till has is rendered, and then we can do it. Get current user is basically going ahead and just checking, is the user logged in? If they're not, they're not authenticated. Otherwise, get user by clerk ID. And this will go into the database, and it will get the user's clerk ID, right? And then it will go ahead. And then why do we need this one, by the way? This is important because you'll be logged in with clerk, but the database will have a different ID for that user. So we have to basically use the clerk user ID check up inside the database. Or what you could do is when you create a user, their initial ID could be their clerk user ID, which is a refactoring step that you could do. That'll probably be more performant because it will reduce the round trip. Okay, so that's our helper functions. Next up, we have the prompt builder. Okay. So next up, what we can do is for the prompt builder, we've got lib newsletters. So let's go ahead and do that. So better with us clicking chat. What would you choose? 100% clerk every time. Easy, not even a question. I've done loads of production apps as well. I would choose clerk every time. And I stand by that heavily. Right. So we've got two more helpers inside of lib newsletter, which is the prompt builder and the types. Firstly, the types. These are just to help us out. Newsletter specific types, article prompt, newsletter prompt params. Then we have the actual prompt builder. This one is interesting. Okay, so this is one I want you to pay attention to. So I've literally refactored this to make life so easy for you. So what we're effectively doing here is we build article summaries. Now what I want you to do is we have the articles here. We have articles, we map through each article. We get the summaries, and basically we can say if there's no summary available, then there's not. We basically give it into a text format. So we give the article title, source, publish, summary link, and we join it. So this is going to build all of the article summaries together. We have build settings context. What this is doing is it's starting with a settings line. It adds settings. So this is very handy, by the way. So this one is really useful because it allows us to add more settings if we want easily. So right now, basic settings, newsletter name, description, target audience, tone, and so forth. And you see, this is what it's effectively doing. So it adds the branding into the settings. So we just got a simple array of all the different settings. Okay. Then what I'd recommend is after that, we have the tags. Same with the required content, disclaimer, and so forth. Same with this as well. And you see what we're doing with the custom photo, required photo content to include at the very end. There you go. So we're basically telling our AI model as much as possible so it can make less errors. We got the setting lines, then we've got newsletter settings, and we basically return that entire string. Okay. Then we've got the build user instruction settings. Okay. So this is where, you know, when we basically was to go to generate something in the first place. Why is that not working? Let's do this. Maybe our app crashed. Yeah, it crashed. No. That's fine, it happens. So now this one is basically critical user instructions must follow, right? So that's basically the instructions that we pass in here, the additional context, but you must follow those, right? It's really important, right? And then we have the build body requirements. So requirements are strong opening hook, use headings for structure, to highlight important stories with context, and so forth. Use bold and italics. So these are all requirements where we can go ahead and easily extend if you want. Same with disclaimer, near the end, naturally incorporate the required disclaimer without using labels like disclaimer or note. Just include the text seamlessly. So these are all basically trying to build the perfect prompt. Then we have build important notes. So use all the newsletter headings settings provided above to inform style, tone, and content. Critical, the user instructions above are mandatory and must be incorporated in the newsletter because AI is fuzzy. Sometimes it can go and try to create something and it basically would ignore half of what you said. Right, so it can happen. So you want to try and include it as much granular functionality as possible. If it has a disclaimer, if it has a footer, if it has user input, and so forth, it will append these. Now, same with this, same with user input. Okay, and the final one is the build net newsletter prompt, and this one is really where it all comes together, right? So you pass in the params, newsletter prompt params come in with this, so this information here, and then we have the settings context, the user instructions, the body requirements, and the importance. And you see why it's so nice because you just pass in those individual things and it just comes back clean. Then we have the overall prompt builder. And this is why it's important to abstract things. Otherwise, this will be huge. So we've got the prompt sections. You're an expert newsletter writer. Create a professional, engaging newsletter from these articles. Date range, so forth, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So in this case, you've got the date range, you've got the settings, contents, user instructions, the articles themselves. You give the article summaries. You say create a newsletter with 5 newsletter titles, 5 email subject lines, newsletter body, between 1,200 words markdown format, and you basically map out the body requirements, right? And that's basically, remember, it has to use this, it has to use that. Top 5 announcements, additional information, and important. And you say return as a structured JSON, right? And then we basically join all of those new lines together inside of that prompt sections, and this will create a large prompt. And you can obviously console log that prompt if you want. So that's how we do the prompt generation, okay? And obviously look, and it's so simple because in our code, we just say build newsletter prompt, pass it in, we get a perfect prompt. Pass that prompt over to this bit. Abstraction is important. It helps us simplify our code base drastically. The only thing that we need now is user settings and then the API endpoints. So user settings is the next one. So inside of our actions, user settings is here. So user settings input, these are just interfaces for what we store for user settings. And then that's pro user stuff, by the way. Get current user settings. We basically go ahead and we just use user settings find first, where the user matches the clerk user ID of the person logged in. Then we have get user settings by user ID, which is direct by the user ID. Then we have upsert user settings, which effectively just goes ahead and finds the database user. If the settings already exist, then we go ahead and use the find unique. And if you're wondering why we don't directly use the upsert, I didn't do it because the free tier of MongoDB Atlas doesn't let you do upsert. You have to be on a paid tier. So if you go to a paid tier, feel free to use upsert. Otherwise, you have to do a workaround, which is basically where you find the existing settings, then you use the existing settings. Else, you basically do it this way. Okay, so it's basically now this is where you do an individual update or create based on if the original setting was there. So upsert is more efficient, but if you want to remain on the free tier, then of course you do the approach where you firstly do a round trip to check if the settings exist, and then you do it accordingly. Otherwise, an upsert would have done that in one round trip. Okay, then you've got delete user settings as well. Okay, and then that's it. Yep, so you got the user settings there. Great. So once we've done that, we can go back over here and we have all of our generate newsletters function made. The only thing we don't have now is our API endpoints. So the API endpoints are the very important parts, obviously. So this one is actually our action, sorry. So let's go back now to our actual code, which is here we have it, dashboard generate. We need to go to our generate function. So inside of our app, dashboard generate page, newsletter generation page, and here we are. And now we're back on this bit. Now over here, we have the generate newsletter working, so we can get rid of, do we have this? Generate newsletter. I don't think we did. No, I don't think we've done generate newsletter yet. Generate newsletter. Yeah, we have done that. Generate newsletter. Type generate actions. Why is that freaking out? Actions generate newsletter. Cannot find module actions generate newsletter. So sometimes this drives me crazy because it is there. Oops. As generate newsletter. So generate newsletter generation page, newsletter generation page. So I just need to double check I've imported these correctly. So I did something stupid. Generated newsletter. Where I took out the newsletter schema. Newsletter schema. No, that's fine. Generate newsletter is not being picked up. That's interesting. Why? So prime example, you can click fix in chat. Let's go ahead and run AI on it. Yep. So in this case, look, we're getting this. I can run it. It will check, and it will basically just start going through options why this might be the case. I'll fix the file structure and fix the import issue. I see the issue. The imports are blah, blah, blah. Looking at line 25, I found it's case sensitivity problem on 25. So newsletter schema. So that's a bit of a stupid issue. No, so my issue is not that. It's this one. So it's still found linter errors. Let's see. It's down. I see the issue now. Newsletter display and newsletter loading card. So now we can see it. Let me check the TypeScript server to find the actual file build running a terminal to verify the module resolution. So it cannot find the module resolution. So now, no. Okay, no. Stop. So sometimes you can go crazy and start building it. This is the actions file. So obviously we're going to create the newsletter display. That's fine. We'll create that afterwards. Newsletter loading card as well. It's the actions, which is kind of throwing me off right now. So newsletter schema, where we added that in, I think that's kind of thrown something off. So newsletter schema right now is inside of newsletter generation, generate newsletter here. Newsletter schema, generate newsletter schema. Okay. And then, okay. Drives me crazy when I have issues like this. God, it's there. I can see it. And look, you see, like TypeScript just needed to refresh. Oh, God, there you go. All right. So now we've got the two newsletter display, newsletter loading card. So let's firstly pop these in, and then we can do the API endpoint. So newsletter display and newsletter ending card. So newsletter display is going to be the following. So newsletter display, React Markdown we need to install because that's going to basically be rendering out Markdown. So npm pmpmi React Markdown. That also means that we need React typography in globals. So what is that? Well, that is effectively anytime that we have WStream, I appreciate you. If we do typography, let's do Tailwind typography. Oh, come on. Let's just go there. No, there you go. Tailwind typography, npm install D. Let's pop it in over here. Oops. Oh no, what have I done? Oh no. Oh no, what have I done? What did I do? Oh my god, that freaked me out. Whoa, that hit all my windows and everything. Okay, Jay, we good? I think we're good, right? Oh my lord, that was scary. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. Oh, thank god. Oh my god, I had like a mini heart attack. Wow. Okay. pm install D means it's only a developer dependency, which means it doesn't go into production build. Now after that, so we need to do the what is it? Tailwind typography. So yeah, go into your main file. So in this case, we're going to go to our globals. It's not actually this. What we do is we add a plugin. So after the import, we add a plugin here, and then we go into our Tailwind config. So I just want to check my one Tailwind config. I don't think we need to do it either, to be honest. Yeah, so we don't think we need to do it. It says if you're using Tailwind CSS v3. So that's that. So we can save that. Probably need to restart our compiler. So we need to restart that. Now go back over, and now the React Markdown should be rendering correctly. So pros is a class name we can use. So, okay, we have our dependencies. We've got our newsletter display props, where we pass in an entire newsletter. The on save function is generating an hide save button. Okay. So has is pro. Basically, we have, we check if there's a pro member or not. We could use our helper functions as well. Right. We basically on mounting, we check if they're a pro. We go ahead and do a copied section. So that's basically the copied section of, the final bit that comes out, this bit here. So copied section. Then we have the copy to clipboard function, which uses Navigator API to basically go ahead and copy to the clipboard, right? The text and section itself. Then we have the download newsletter button. And this is a very nice command, actually. So it takes a section. It basically puts a section together like so. And then it will go ahead and initially basically create a newsletter dated txt file, and then when we click it, it will go ahead and download the file. So that's quite nice, right? It's basically forcefully doing that, so you can download a file. And that's the text file I showed you earlier. Then we have all of this stuff over here. We have if you're a pro, then basically we go ahead and put in the save button, and then we have the download button as well, and then we have the newsletter sections. So these newsletter sections is basically another component I put at the bottom down here. So newsletter section I put as so you can have this as a separate component because right now it's quite a big file, but each section has a title, items on copy, is copied, is generating, and compact version. And then we have the safe items here as well, which is basically if we're accessing items safely. So if it is an empty array, then we have the title, the copy button, and then for each one, we're effectively saying if it's generating, we just put in a placeholder posting value. So that's where you might have seen that placeholder where it's posting. That's effectively what's happening here. Okay. We map through, and then basically afterwards we're showing the word count as well. Yeah. So in this case, you see the badge, right? Or safe items. That's it. Yeah. So there we have it. That's basically the rendering logic. So that's the display newsletter. And then the way we pass data to that is we pass the newsletter into it. The newsletter itself is a partial. Okay. So as I mentioned before, it's being streamed in partially. Right. And then of course that's what we're doing to effectively render out each section. So newsletter body, so you see each different bit. So the top 5 announcements, these are all the newsletter sections. The body is slightly different. We have the button, we have the section, and we have here, as the body comes in, that body is being streamed in as a partial. So it's going to literally populate and re-render that section. And then if there is no body, then while we're waiting for it, it's basically generating. Okay, so basically we have this kind of, animate post. You can use that, or you can use the skeleton from Shadcn. And then we have additional info at the bottom as well. So these are different sections. Okay. So that's the newsletter display done. So the final UI component here is the newsletter loading card. Much more simple than what we just did. The newsletter loading card is just going to be like so. Very clean. Just a card saying generating your newsletter. AI is crafting your personalized. This may take a minute. Okay. So now we should be able to load this page. So effectively, if we were to get rid of this, we can load it, but it won't work because what will happen is we can't firstly trigger this. So we need to create the generate stream API endpoint. So let's do that now. That's the first thing that triggers the stream. And then also before it even hits that one, the submit, remember that happens when we hit submit. Before it even does that, we need to do API newsletter prepare. So how do we do API endpoints in Next.js? Well, this is why it kills MERN-stack. In case anyone's going to shout at me over not doing MERN-stack, Next.js is king compared to MERN-stack. Know it by now, guys. Like, it's better, period. You need to learn how to use it, right? But we can have an API, yes. And so we're going to have a / newsletter / prepare. And this is literally an API route. So we can do route.ts and we have an API, okay? So prepare, and inside of this route, we have the following. So the way it works is we have max duration. These are essentially settings that we can pass into Vercel. So that way we say the max duration of this API call can be 60 seconds. Like so, yeah. You can also have dynamic values to make sure it's not caching and so forth. Then someone goes, why is the video coming later than the voice? I can't fix it sometimes, honestly. It is live, but it's just frustrating. I don't know. We get this lag that happens and we need to correct it, but apologies if that's happening at the moment. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's really frustrating. I don't know why that happens. But anyway, I think we're good. Okay. So at this point, API newsletter prepare. So in this case, we have the post request, we have the body, we get the feed ID, start date and end date from the body. Then we validate the required parameters. We make sure, okay, we've got all of the stuff we need, right? Then we get the current user to make sure the user is verified. We get the feeds to refresh. Again, our abstraction is a big thing, okay? So Jay, I think we're good with that issue, right? Just let me know. Get our call count. So again, all of these helpers keep our code nice and clean. And the prepare basically is we run this before we do the generation command. So that way we have the feeds to refresh and the articles found. Right, so feeds to refresh could be like, 3 articles, 3 feeds that we need to refresh, 6 articles found. Okay. And then we've got the error as well. Okay. So that's our prepare endpoint done. And then we have the API newsletter generate stream, right? So in this case, API newsletter, and we're going to create another one called generate stream. And inside of here, this is route.ts. Okay. So inside of this one now, we have a bit more stuff going on. And again, can you see how these helpers are going to make life so much easier, guys? Right. So this one is 5 minutes for Vercel Pro because it could be longer, right? Remember, AI generation can take a long time sometimes, right? So we have newsletter schema. Again, we don't have that here, guys. So that's my bad. We want to use our newsletter schema consistently throughout from our backend, right? So that way it's a consistent same one. So if we change it one place, we make sure it's the same thing. That's my bad, right? So in this case, here we have a try catch, right? And this one is basically streams newsletter generation in real time using Vercel AI SDK. The AI SDK handles all streaming complexity or max, which is brilliant because it saves us SSE management headaches, right? I've done it before in other builds, but you guys can know, okay? So body, we strip out the feeds, start date, end date, and user input. We validate here. We get the current user, we get the user settings, we get to prepare the feeds and articles, we build the article summaries, we build the prompt, okay? And then we basically pass in everything to the prompt. Now, again, you could even abstract that again. So you could have all of this stuff happen inside the build newsletter prompt. So it's just literally one line. And then this is the magic, the real beautiful thing, the stream object. So this is where we stream down to the front end, add a post generation logic here. This is quite handy, by the way. This is just like if you want to, once it's finished streaming, maybe you want to send a kind of special message and pick it up on the front end and do something with it. But effectively, this will begin streaming. And then this is the golden bit of code. So what this does is it's basically telling the response type to stay open, right? So in this case, this is basically going ahead and sending back as chunks. So without this, you have to basically have like, content type octet stream. And then you have to have stay alive, and basically you have to monitor that connection, and then you have to have like an encoder sending things to the back. It can be quite a lot, whereas now they made life so easy, but just saying result to text stream response. So I really appreciate what the guys are over Vercel doing, because it makes things into one-liners, which is cool. And then we have the error over here, error handling. So with that in mind, let's see if we did it. Okay, so date range last 7 days, all 3. And let's just say, let's focus on React 19. Okay, generate newsletter. Let's see what's happening now. Compiling, generating your newsletter, preparing to generate. Now I want to show you guys in the back end what's happening here. So if we go over here now, there was a bit of an error. There was an error, yeah. So as use server can only export async functions, and it found an object. So what did I screw up with here? So this is in generate stream. So generate stream, what did I really mess that up? Generate stream. No, that's fine. No, weird. Let's try again. So keep that higher. Let's go ahead and clear the terminal, go back, and let's do it again. So let's just try and do just a basic one, 7 days with that stuff, generate stream. Okay, so we have the same error again. Use server file can only exports async functions, and it found an object. Interesting. So I want to double check this. So I've screwed up somewhere. So it's fine. It's part of debugging. So again, what can we do here? What would I realistically do? I would pop this into the chat and go ahead and say help debug, help debug. Now we can have a look, see what's going on. It says on schema. Oh, I see. Because okay. So remember when I said it needs to be in a consistent place? That's a very good point, actually. Yeah. So what I screwed up with there, guys, is I was trying to get it from a non-server function file, the newsletter schema. So typically I was getting it from this file, which again is a different route. Like, it's not going to be the right thing. So here, now what we do is we create a separate types file. So newsletter types, or we add it in there, sorry. And that's the newsletter type. And we have that there. And then what it's doing is it's rewriting. So it pulls from there instead. And that's a shared route. So now it's basically just rewrote all of it. And even here as well, it's pulling it from our newsletter types. And then it's going to go ahead and check if it can TypeScript compile. So we should be good. And then there's one more, which is newsletter display. So newsletter display as well is where it's gone ahead and found that we also did the same thing. We pulled the type from that, which is correct. Actually, we shouldn't be pulling it from there, because we're effectively pulling it from an action and that's not a good way of doing it, right? We need to keep it from a type. Literally, it's just a types file. Like that's literally it. Like we should abstract that in the correct way. Cool. So then what we do is we click keep all, because I actually checked that. You want to make sure you understand what the hell it just did. I understood every single thing it just did, I promise. And now what we do is we check again. So we can go ahead, we can clear the terminal, and we can go ahead and do the following. So we can do the same thing, pick a date range, last 7 days. And I have a feeling it's very strong now. So I can say focus on React 19. And then now you can see, look, all 3 feeds are fresh, skipping the refresh. That's awesome. And now, guys, let's see, hopefully, look at that. Boom, it's streaming in, guys. Awesome, awesome stuff. And we have literally that stream hit our back end, did it nicely. That looks awesome. Rise in popularity, and look, focus on React 19. Awesome, it done it exactly the way we wanted it. That is amazing. Okay, so we have the top 5 announcements. We have this, and once it's done, we should be able to go ahead and download. So if we click on download, that is newsletter downloaded, and it just popped up on my machine. If I go into my Finder and I go into my downloads, and here you can see we've got this. Bam, amazing. So that's working great. Okay, so there you go. We've got that down. History, settings, account. We need to power through these, and also the pricing page. So power through those. And again, like when you land on that page, it's dynamically generating. Okay, so that works, and it works damn well and nice. So smash the like button if you thought that was cool. Now, secondly, we need to do history settings. So yeah, so let's just jump through it. So next up, we have history. So I want to jump through these now because these are quite important. We need to get these out of the way. But we've already done all of the hard stuff. So the streaming is now done. So what we actually need to do now is in our app, in our dashboard, we need a couple of pages. So app, dashboard, and then firstly, let's do the history. So history is going to be here. Inside of here, we have a history. We have a page.tsx. This one, I don't know. Do we actually use that authentication required? Oh yeah, it was this one. So we have two pages inside of history. One, if you're not a pro member, you should see this page, right? So this one is effectively saying if you're not a pro member, you should see that your authentication required. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to get there in the first place. But otherwise, all this is doing is it's basically showing an upgrade card. So effectively, when you go here, remember I showed you in the beginning, it will show you this screen, but it'll say a pricing card here. So it'll show you the upgrade cards here, okay? That's effectively what we're doing here. But we just need to add in newsletter history list, which is effectively where we can show all of the newsletter history that is there. So let's add that component in right now. Newsletter history list. So in the components, newsletter, oops, nope, don't do that. Inside of dashboard, it should be. Yep, newsletter history list. Effectively, this one, we need a actions delete newsletter button. I think we have that, don't we? Oops. Actions, newsletter, delete newsletter. I think we did that already. No, I think I may need to do a separate delete newsletter. Yeah, I don't think I did the delete newsletter. So first, let me add the delete newsletter action. Delete, yeah. So we have an actual specific one for this. Checks authorization, deletes newsletter from view, validates the cache to update the UI. So again, simple thing is deleting the newsletter database from the newsletter function. Yep, that's the one. Revalidates dashboard history. This is important for server components, and it returns true if it's all good. So this one is the newsletter history list. All this is doing, guys, in a short glimpse, is basically it has a delete protection window. So you basically you show on delete. Before all of that, basically, if you don't have any newsletters, or say you haven't saved any newsletters yet. Secondly, is that's where you're on the. Oh, thank you, dude. And then secondly, we have the actual newsletters themselves. So in this case, this is basically going to go ahead and work out the though this is working out a date range from today. So we could use React now, or we could use this, but effectively this is going to show the history. Okay, so we got the history here now. So that's the history page. So if I'm on starter plan, you see upgrade to pro and it renders out the pricing cards. Now what I want to do is, once I am a pro, how do I see the actual card? So we've actually already done that part, but when I click into it, so now I'm going to upgrade to a pro and I'll show you. So let's pay 180. I'm now a pro member. Well, hey, right? And then, oh, I've got it kicking me back over here. That's fine. You can change that behavior. If we hit a refresh now, newsletter history, we don't have the actual redirect logic. So right now I am a pro and yet it's not taking us anywhere. So history page, if user has this, if user has pro. Okay, yeah, so it just took a while to kick in. Maybe it's my server or whatever. But effectively, yeah, so I get access to it. So I'm on the pro plan. I haven't styled the pro plan correctly. So compared to the live one, minor change, you can do that yourself. But here you can see view your, go to dashboard, generate a newsletter, cool. So what I want to do now is I want to generate a newsletter and save because I'm now a pro. So we've got the pro functionality there. Let's do last 7 days as a Next.js 16 focus. And then we click on generate newsletter and let that generate. And then after it's generated, I'm going to go ahead and make sure we save it. And now we should have a save button. So we're going to test that functionality as well. So let that do its thing. And let's just see in the back end. Yep, all 3 feeds are fresh, skipping the refresh. And you can see it starts to save the information. Okay. Now let that do its thing. And bear in mind, you may not be impressed with that because you've seen me do it a few times, but that is crazy good, guys. Right? That's actually crazy, crazy powerful in doing that. So let that do its thing for a moment. While that's happening, actually, I need to kind of wait for this. You can see the save button is there now. And also, by the way, just to prove your point that you can copy stuff to clipboard and it does work. So look, you can see that's actually all of those things. Yeah. Let that quickly generate. We need to one saved document to demo this out. We're almost actually at the end now. We're actually almost there. I can see the light. I can see the light. Okay. So we have void 0, most read articles and tools, origins and JavaScript. Okay, come on. This is where it decides to take slow. Looking forward. Yes, yes, yes. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay. Okay. Amazing. Come on. Top 5 announcements, and then it's done some additional information on there. Once it's done, and obviously you can increase this and add, you know, the background functionality to this. But newsletter generated, we're gonna save. So I've saved it now. Newsletter saved to history. If I click on history now, boom, I have this. When I click on this, I get a 404 because we do not have the page set up, right? So if we go to our history ID page.tsx, so I pasted this in, but we didn't actually create the page. So what this is effectively doing is it should render out the entire page. And what it's effectively doing is it's doing newsletter history view, and it pops in the history. So what we're doing is we just need a newsletter history view. So this is effectively rendering it out in a way that works the same way as when it generated. So newsletter history view is like so. So effectively it has all of the same functionality. So could you do this a bit cleaner? Probably, yeah. You can definitely do it a bit cleaner, but right now we've got the card, we've got all of the different fields like feeds used and so forth. And then, oh, sorry, I am doing it nice. Yeah. Newsletter display. We show the newsletter display with the newsletter without a save button and the handle save functionality being the following. My newsletter is already saved. This is just for component compatibility. So you could make that an option if you really wanted to. And what that will do is it will render the same component that we had here. Awesome. Right? And then deletion as well pops in like so. Obviously, I'm not going to delete it because we need to use that. And you can see that's working perfectly, guys. Really, really nice. All right. Next up, settings and account. Let's do it. So settings. I want to get this done before 4 hours. We have half an hour, guys. We've got a mission. Right. So next up, we have the settings page. So settings is going to be inside of dashboard, settings, /page. And this is our settings page. We need a settings form. What does it look like firstly? So if we were to go into the settings page, you see we have all of the different settings. We've already set up all of these helpers and everything. We just need to implement stuff like this, the adding different tags and the ability to save. Okay. So here we just need the settings form to create, but really the rest of it is fairly simple, right? If it's a pro, then we get the user settings. Otherwise, we're going to basically say to the user, no, you can't do it. This is just a check, but really you don't even need that because you're not allowed here based on the proxy. But if you're not a pro, then it will pop up an upgrade card saying customize your newsletter, and then it will show the pricing cards. So this is why we make the pricing cards like so, and we have that compact version. Then we have the settings form. If you are a pro, it'll render the settings form. Okay. So we need to create the settings form component for you. So the settings form looks something like this. So inside of components now, inside of the dashboard, we can pop in the settings form. And as you can see, we already have all the dependencies. These are all of the user settings. And again, you could even be pulling these from a central database sort of view, or even from the backend itself, probably using Zod a bit better, more type checking. And then you've got the form state. And again, could you refactor this to use React form from Shadcn? Yeah, you could. And it'll be much cleaner. But for now, I just did it in a quick way. I done it in a manual way, right? We have the handle save when you save the form, where you clean the data. So clean up form data, convert empty strings to null. Then we upsert the user settings, which we've already checked, right? This is literally where we take the data and we basically upsert inside the database. Handle change is literally just going ahead and making sure when we type in, it goes ahead and updates the form data. But this one is a handy little utility function. So it takes a field and a value. Rather than having handle changes for every single one, you can have a kind of a helper function like this, where it takes the field, the key value pair, and then it sets the form data by spreading out everything, but modifying that one field. It's kind of a pattern I've seen a few times. Handle and tag as well, same thing. Handle remove tag, handle key down to go ahead and hit enter on the tags field. And then we have the form itself. So this is the newsletter, the basic information wrapped in a card. We have the newsletter name, and then we have the handle change with the key value and the form itself, right? So my improvement here, I'd recommend that you use React form and just kind of rewrite this. I think it'll be cleaner. But effectively what we're doing here is we're capturing all the data, and then on the handle save at the end, and you can also wrap the entire thing in a form. That's what I would probably do even better than this. And then you have the handle save, and then effectively you upset here. So let's give that a try. All right, so now we should have that working. So if we go into settings, newsletter name. So let's go ahead and do something like superhero coding society. Okay, I don't know, something like that. Superhero coding society, save settings. And I just want to test it with one thing, right? Obviously you can put all of these in, it will get passed through, right? Dashboard, let's go ahead and do last 7 days, React blog, I'm not going to add any additional context in. Let's generate a newsletter. We should have now some kind of like, welcome superhero society. Welcome to the superhero coding society newsletter. There you go. Hello superheroes. Dive into the world of blah, blah, blah. And there you go. Nice. Right. So really, really cool. You see that? Now we can modify our settings. See, it's just awesome. Right. And now if we go back out, we've got the history, we've got the settings, we've got the account. Right. So account and pricing are next. Account is so easy. It's awesome. I love it. And that's thanks to Clerk. So that is actually because of this. So we actually have the /account. So app dashboard /account, and then inside of here /page.tsx here. So this is so easy. You'll be amazed. To get that entire account flow, it's literally this. We have the page header, and then we have the user profile, custom appearance. The only thing you need to do is hash the routing. And what that means is when I navigate in this embedded view, you see how it's hashing into it. You've got the different things here, like the different settings and stuff like that. Now, is this okay for an MVP? 100%, I think so. Right, this is an awesome way to do an MVP. Like you can literally have it so easy, or you can have the user button in the corner, wherever you really feel, right? So in my opinion, it's enough for now. Like, you know what I mean? If you're just trying to get off the ground very quickly, you want someone to be able to access their stuff, there you go. They can kind of do it if you really need them to, okay? So, or you can make this a full screen element. Whatever you want to do, it's there. Super easy from Clerk, and it works, right? The final one is the Pro, and this is dashboard /pricing. And then I believe we have hit a home run and we are done. So in this case, dashboard, we have the pricing page.tsx. Now, as you can see here, all we have is Pro. And then we have basically plans and pricing, manage your subscription. We have the card essentially at the top saying, thank you for being a Pro member if you're a Pro. Otherwise, it'll go ahead and show your plan. And this is really nice because it mounts really well. We have the exact same pricing cards, and these are all the same pricing card components from Clerk. Now, I don't think you understand how easy and nice this really is to be able to have this ability to simply have all of your payments managed from these simple pricing cards is nuts. If you've ever done any, and I can guarantee, I'm going to ask the chat right now, chat, if you've ever done any Stripe payment subscription model, webhook flow, can anyone in the chat right now validate what I'm saying? We have literally 100 people, or around 150 people across platforms. Let me know the struggle between what we just did versus a single component called pricing table, and it handles everything for us. And this is obviously, I'm styling it like this because I want to style it differently, but that is wildly simple compared to what you normally have to. Normally you have to have webhooks and tap into the Stripe webhooks. And then if a subscription fails, you have to manage that. And then you have to have the payment flow, Stripe checkout flow, whatever you want to do. You have to keep track of all of those things. So this allows you to get a SaaS up and running extremely quick and extremely simple, right? Extremely simple way. It's awesome. With that said, guys, I think we just hit the nail. We finished it. I added in the Pro. So as you can see here, so I want to add in one more newsletter. So let's go ahead and do this. There we go. Next.js done. So I want to add in maybe, what have I not got? Next.js Medium. We have JavaScript Weekly, React Native Blog, JavaScript Weekly, and then React Status. Okay, so React Status. So let's go ahead and scrape this one. So we're going to scrape, just to show you that the feature gate's removed. So now you can see we can add it. And of course, you can add this. You can add so much to this app, guys. Really, you can. Right, let's do last 90 days, okay? From all of this, focus on huge releases only, okay? So breaking news level, okay? And I want to have everything in there. So 404 fees, like to generate the newsletter. Let's see the entire demo of this app right now, guys. So you guys can see here, generating your newsletter. AI is crafting a personalized newsletter. This may take a minute. And as you can see, amazing, it's doing it. And superhero coding site, obviously, because we named it that. And while it's doing that, I just want to go ahead and check something. 1 second, guys. I want to just make sure that something don't pop up. There we go. Cool. Now, yeah, there we have it. And as you can see, look, we have Next.js released. Big releases only. TypeScript tops GitHub, cool. Birth of the React Foundation, that's huge actually. Buns 1.3 full stack revolution, React Native 0.82. And then we have a Next.js 16, which is obviously huge news. Right, I just had focus on the big news and it found Next.js 16 as the big news. And this is awesome because now I can go in, I can copy this, I can copy a subject line, I can copy the body, maybe the announcements, maybe some additional notes and so forth. And I can create a newsletter in minutes, not hours. So there you go, guys. We've generated a full SaaS platform. And of course, this was using Clerk to do so, right? So even on the back end, just want to go and show you guys. Remember, we were in the Clerk dashboard. And if we were to refresh this, now we should see, look at this, guys. We can see Sonny's free trial ended. He became a pro member and your monthly recurring revenue is $15 at the moment, with your annual being $180, right? So absolutely awesome. So that's really, really nice way to be able to see this. And you can see like everything. So I can click into Sonny. He's on 180 a year, created on, started at, all of his details, when he's going to get charged next, lifetime value, lifetime paid, and so forth, right? Everything is there. And of course, when you want to go to production, all you have to do is go to your subscription plans, settings and billings. Go here and click on Stripe, create a Stripe account, and then it will go ahead and first you'll delete all of this. That's absolutely fine. Obviously, when you want to go production, you can do that. But the Clerk payment gateway is incredible for development. And there you have it, guys. And it works seamlessly. We have used it before. The Stripe account will obviously take into consideration all the different webhooks, all that cool sort of stuff. And it will work just exactly the same, right? And the best part, Clerk billing costs literally 0.7 per transaction. So really, really awesome. I highly recommend it if you want to go ahead and use it. And of course, this entire app was powered by our friends over at MongoDB. So MongoDB has been incredible today. Let me know in the chat right now if this video has changed your perception on what MongoDB can do. The streaming, having everything built in like the way we've done it, like Vercel AI. This is where I really stress the point of know the tech that you can use. I'm going to do it the way we know how to do it. Know the tech you can use and know how to put it together. For example, MongoDB, such a powerful solution. MongoDB Atlas, especially in the cloud, the auto scaling and all the benefits that you can have, like global clusters, backup, integrated AI tooling. And then if you do find it hard to, for example, add in things like schemas, or you really kind of aren't sure about having NoSQL databases, then know that you can layer that with tools like Prisma, and then you can get extremely powerful schemas and relations and everything set up in the app. So you can have that power of Postgres, but you can have the flexibility of something like MongoDB. So this is really kind of what I would recommend that everyone does. Really make sure that you're constantly learning and figuring out stuff, as opposed to just listening to what the crowd will say. That's my honest advice here. And of course, if you're still confused and you don't know what to do, then all I ask that you do is just fill out the form today so you can get the code for absolutely free. So literally fill out for absolutely free. Make sure, like I said, when you sign up for the links for Clerk and MongoDB, do so by using the links here or in the description down below. So it allows me to do this for free continuously over and over and over again, because that is how we're able to do this, guys. And of course, I give away the entire source code over here. You can join Zero to Full Stack Hero, our active community right now. And if you just signed up to get the free code, you will receive an email shortly about the new community that we are launching, which will teach you how to become the next generation developer. If you saw today, I was flying through code with AI tools. I was flying through debugging instances. This is really how we're going to go ahead and level up the next generation of developers. So you need to know how to use these tools so you don't get left behind, because that's the truth. AI is not going to take your job. The guy who's using AI is going to take your job. That is the truth. That's not scaremongering. That is a fact. And I know it because I am so much faster as a developer now that I have tools like Cursor and I have all of these things in place, and it's fractions of the price of hiring another developer. $200 a month for Cursor Ultra is nothing compared to paying a few $1,000s for an employed developer. So I'm not saying it's going to replace them, but I'm saying developers who know how to leverage AI are going to become incredibly powerful developers. It's a multiplier. It makes you an incredible developer, but it also makes you a much worse developer if you don't know what you're doing. So you need a mentor. You need to be in the right community. Go ahead and check it out right now. Zero to Full Stack Hero, papareact.com/course. Make sure you sign up. Go ahead and also get the code for free. And if you've done that, then I'll be in touch shortly when we release our community. What's up, Marine from Texas? Good to see you in the house. I can see you, by the way, guys, loads of you asking if this is live. 100% it's live. We only do things live over here for the absolutely huge stuff. Make sure you guys enjoy the code and extend on it, and make sure you tag me in your stories and all that good stuff. This has been the Newsletter AI SaaS. As always, guys, it's your boy Sunny, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.